Chapter 104. Wang Haiqing? Jiang Haiqing was Xiong Qixing's master. Although it was Xiong Qixing who stepped in to eliminate him from the gifted class, Wang Haiqing's shadow was definitely behind it. Yi Xing was enraged. Wang Haiqing's words had caused him to fly into a rage. He wanted him to lose this battle. Furthermore, he was using a commanding tone. Yi Xing sneered in his heart. Who did he think he was? Perhaps because he saw the dissatisfaction on Yi Xing's face, Wang Haiqing's voice once again sounded in Yi Xing's ears. If you lose this battle, I can recall you back to the gifted class. If you dare to win, in this Purple Mountain Academy, there will be me, Wang Haiqing, and there will be no Yi Xing, a threat. It was a blatant threat. Facing the threat of a vice principal, how many students would not be afraid? Coincidentally, Yi Xing was one of them. I, Yi Xing, do things according to my heart. Who dares to force me? Yi Xing could not use his inner strength to transmit his voice to the other party. He could only snort coldly in his heart. At this moment, Ling Fengjue, who was opposite Yi Xing, also received Wang Haiqing's inner strength transmission. I am Wang Haiqing. Yi Xing has received my warning. You can attack as you wish. He won't dare to resist. Wang Haiqing had too much confidence in his own prestige. He thought that with his threat, he would definitely be able to make Yi Xing, a junior from an ordinary city, submit to him. Wang Haiqing? Vice Principal Wang? Ling Fengjue's eyes lit up. Yi Xing's goal was to become a martial saint. He did not place too much importance on Wang Haiqing, the vice principal. However, in Ling Fengjue's eyes, Wang Haiqing was an unreachable figure. After receiving Vice Principal Wang's transmission, how could Ling Fengjue not be happy? He did not doubt Wang Haiqing's words. He believed that Yi Xing would definitely listen to Wang Haiqing's warning and not dare to attack. No matter how strong Yi Xing was, if he did not dare to make a move, what was there to be afraid of? The fear in Ling Fengjue's heart immediately receded, and he became high-spirited. Yi Xing, if I defeat you, my name will definitely spread far and wide, and I will even take first place in the examination. Ling Fengjue thought to himself, and he was incomparably happy. When Deacon Luo said, "Begin," Ling Fengjue immediately unsheathed his sword and turned it into a cold light, thrusting towards Yi Xing high-grade martial skill, 9 gale swords. The sword was like a gust of wind, and the sword light was like lightning. It was extremely fast. Ling Fengjue believed Wang Haiqing's words and believed that Yi Xing would not fight back. Therefore, this sword attack was completely offensive. It was fast, but in Yi Xing's eyes, it was full of openings. His gaze turned cold and he instantly attacked. Low-grade martial skill, flower-piercing hands. Yi Xing's hands were like butterflies piercing through flowers, passing through the sword light. In Ling Fengjue's eyes, Yi Xing's hands also turned into 2 butterflies, fluttering in the wind. His sword light was like blooming flowers. No matter how fast the butterflies flew, or how dense the flowers were, the butterflies did not come into contact with any of the flowers. In an instant, Yi Xing's hands pierced through the sword light. One of his hands slapped on Ling Fengjue's wrist, and the other on the sword hilt. Whoosh! In an instant, the treasured sword shot out from Ling Fengjue's hands and was directly sent flying by Yi Xing. Ling Fengjue was surprised that Yi Xing dared to ignore Vice Dean Wang's warning and actually dared to fight back. He felt a pain in his chest as he suffered a heavy blow. Pung 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 pung. Yi Xing punched out, and his fists turned into 1,000 shadows, overlapping each other. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 punches landed on Ling Fengjue's chest. He could only blame Ling Fengjue's bad luck. At this moment, Yi Xing's heart was burning with anger, so his attacks were much heavier than those of Bian Chuxing and Li Yanzhao. After receiving more than 10 punches from Yi Xing, Ling Fengjue's internal organs were damaged, and he was severely injured. His body was immediately sent flying, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood in the air. Ling Fengjue's defeat was not out of the expectations of the students. However, Yi Xing used 2 moves to beat him up so miserably, which shocked the students. They naturally did not know that before the battle, Yi Xing was threatened by Wang Haiqing, and his heart was burning with anger. Therefore, Ling Fengjue was in the same group as Xiong Qixing, so his attacks were heavier. Of course, if the students knew that Yixing was threatened by Wang Haiqing, they would be even more shocked. In the Purple Mountain Academy, even the vice dean's threat was ignored. This was even more shocking than seriously injuring Ling Fengjue. Impudent. On the highest floor of the VIP building, Wang Haiqing was furious as he roared. A mere 6th-level martial artist from an ordinary city, a mere 2-star martial artist with trash aptitude, dared to treat Wang Haiqing's words as wind past one's ears and directly ignore them? This was simply preposterous. Wang Haiqing had been in a high position for a long time. Among the 3 vice deans of the Purple Mountain Academy, he was the one with the most authority. Even a 9th-level master would have to be respectful in front of him. However, he was unable to suppress a new student of the ordinary class even after transmitting his voice twice. How could he not be angry in his heart? This roar came from the highest floor of the VIP building, and all the students in the square heard it clearly. Even though the students could not tell that it was Vice Dean Wang Haiqing's voice, the roar that came from the highest floor of the VIP building caused the students to be incomparably shocked, and their hearts shook. Some students even guessed that the owner of the voice was Vice Dean Wang Haiqing, and were even more shocked. Just how terrifying was a Vice Dean's anger? Who could withstand it? Yixing was not as scared as the other students towards Wang Haiqing's roar. Even though he acted ostentatiously, in reality he was bold and meticulous, and knew what was going on. If the person who was threatening him was Zishan Ho, telling him to lose this battle, then Yixing would not say another word, and would definitely tuck his tail between his legs and behave obediently, and not offend Zishan Ho. First, because Zishan Ho was a martial saint, the strongest peerless expert that Yixing knew. Yixing's goal was to cultivate into a martial saint. In other words, since he had achieved his goal, he would only be on par with Zishan Ho, and might not even have Zishan Ho's strength. Offending him would be unwise. Second, because Zishan Ho was the person with the highest authority in Zishan County, he was the Duke of Zishan County. In Zishan County, no one could control him. Therefore, if he wanted to kill someone, even if he had no reason, no one could stop him. But Wang Haiqing was different. Wang Haiqing did not have either of these 2 reasons. First, Wang Haiqing was not a martial saint, and second, he was not the person with the highest authority in Zishan County. He was still restricted by people with higher authority, such as Zishan Ho. Therefore, it was destined that Wang Haiqing could not act recklessly. No matter how great his authority was, he still had to act according to the rules. Otherwise, if he did something he should not do, he would be punished by people with higher authority. The most important point was that Mu Feng had once told Yixing that a cultivator's dignity could not be sullied. If he had to resist, he should resist. Mu Feng, as a member of the Marquis household, being able to say these words was obviously not a casual remark, but rather a proof of one thing. That was, Zishan Ho was a person who managed things, and would not allow the upper echelons of the academy to oppress the students. Only in this way would Mu Feng's words be meaningful, and not empty words. Because of all these reasons, Yixing did not take Wang Haiqing's threat seriously. A cultivator's dignity could not be sullied. Only in a situation where there was no other choice would they be oppressed. As long as there was a chance, they would live with dignity and fight back against anyone who oppressed them. Yixing's fist was still unable to land on Wang Haiqing's body. Therefore, he could only let Ling Fengjue suffer, who asked him to collude with Xianxia, and Xianxia was Wang Haiqing's disciple. On the highest floor of the VIP building. Compared to Wang Haiqing's anger, Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran, the 2 vice deans, were full of smiles. They were in a good mood. Yixing defeating Ling Fengjue and obtaining first place in the assessment was exactly what the 2 vice deans wanted. Wu Yunshan chuckled and said, "Vice Dean Wang, why are you so excited? The battle for first place is the most intense." Yixing, in order to prevent himself from being defeated in the last round, used a bit more strength. This is very normal. In order to eliminate the impact of Wang Haiqing's angry shout, Wu Yunshan deliberately used his inner strength when speaking. His voice spread out so that everyone could hear him. Yixing, don't be afraid. You were able to obtain first place in the assessment. You are the pillar of our Zishan Academy. No one can make things difficult for you. As for that Ling Fengjue, he suffered heavy injuries. This is not a problem. Wu Yunshan will heal him. Wu Yunshan said a lot before realizing that Yi Xing might not know who he was from his voice, so he deliberately mentioned his name. This made Yi Xing smile in his heart. There was no need for Zishan Ho to come out and control Wang Haiqing. Zishan Academy had 3 vice deans. Wang Haiqing obviously could not cover the sky with one hand. This vice dean Wu Yunshan could go against him. For Yi Xing, this was naturally a good thing. As for the other students, when they heard that the speaker was Vice Dean Wu Yunshan, they were surprised. Vice deans were too high up for students. It was very difficult for students to come in contact with them. Because of this, Xianxia did not have the best aptitude in the advanced genius class, nor did he have the highest cultivation. However, he was Wang Haiqing's personal disciple, which made him limitless in the advanced genius class. Yi Xing had only been in the Zishan Academy for a month, but he had already angered one of the vice deans and made another vice dean speak up for him. This made the other students surprised. However, Vice Principal Wu Yunshan was not the only one who spoke up for Yi Xing. Vice Principal Li Xiaoran also spoke up. Vice Principal Wu is right. Yi Xing is one of the pillars of our Purple Mountain Academy. He is the #1 genius amongst the new students. He should be rewarded. How could he be so presumptuous? Moreover, such a genius was actually eliminated to the ordinary class. They really had eyes but failed to see. They missed out on such a talent. Some people should be punished. Some people should wake up. Li Xiaoran did not need to point out his identity. Others could guess who the speaker was. Interrupting Wang Haiqing and Wu Yunshan when the 2 vice deans were speaking, and even criticizing the genius class teacher Mo Xiaocong, of course, it was the other vice dean, Li Xiaoran. This made the other students even more surprised. Both Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran praised Yi Xing. Wang Haiqing snorted and no longer said anything. At this time, Yi Xing had won the first place in the new student assessment and had the support of 2 vice deans. Even Wang Haiqing could not touch a single hair on Yi Xing's head. Under the affirmation of the 2 vice deans, Yi Xing's first place result naturally had no objections. It was confirmed that he received 12 high-grade star accumulating pills and 3 high-grade herbs as a generous reward. Chapter 105. Not long after, the 2nd to 5th places were also decided. Because Bian Chuxing, Li Yanzhao, and Ling Fengjue had all suffered heavy injuries from Yi Xing, the 2nd place was taken by the uninjured Yu Xixue. Ling Fengjue's injuries were the heaviest. Even if he received treatment, he wouldn't be able to recover much of his strength in a short period of time. Naturally, he was ranked last among the 5. Bian Chuxing and Li Yanzhao had another fierce battle. In the end, Bian Chuxing won by half a move and took 3rd place. Li Yanzhao took 4th place. After the top 5 places were decided, the rewards for the 2nd to 5th places were also given out. However, although several people received generous rewards, other than Yu Xixue, Bian Chuxing, Li Yanzhao, and Ling Fengjue didn't have the slightest bit of joy. Each of them was frowning. After the top 5 rewards were given out, the top 10, top 20, and top 40 rewards were also given out. Many students received rewards, and most of them were very happy in their hearts. As for the students who didn't enter the top 40, they could only look at others with envious eyes. The new student assessment ended in a situation where a small number of people were happy and a large number of people were envious. However, many students knew that today's big event wasn't over yet. Perhaps the real big event had not yet begun, and was about to begin. Compared to the battle between Yi Xing and Xianxia, the new student assessment was simply a child's play, not worth mentioning. Sure enough, when Deacon Luo announced the end of the new student assessment, Yi Xing shouted loudly, "Xianxia, it's your turn." The previous conversation between Yi Xing and Xianxia was not known to all students. A large number of students were unaware. Hearing that Yi Xing actually called out Xianxia's name, they couldn't help but be shocked. Xianxia was not only an outstanding genius in the advanced genius class, he was also the personal disciple of Vice Principal Wang Haiqing. Who in the Purple Mountain Institute did not know of him? As for Yi Xing, although he had obtained 1st place in the freshman assessment, in the hearts of the students, He still couldn't be compared to the elites of the advanced genius class. Yi Xing challenging Xianxia was naturally shocking. Has his head been kicked by a donkey? He's already gotten first place in the new student exam. How glorious is that? Yet he insists on challenging a student from the advanced genius class. Isn't he just asking for trouble and looking for a beating? Someone thought in his heart. As for the students who had overheard the conversation between Yi Xing and Xianxia, they were somewhat moved and could not help but sigh. Yi Xing was really fearless. However, they were also not optimistic about the outcome of Yi Xing challenging Xianxia. Not to mention the students, even the deacons, teachers, and the 3 vice deans were shocked. Yi Xing's challenge to Xianxia was out of everyone's expectations. Even they were shocked. The one who had the strongest emotional reaction was none other than Wang Haiqing. Wang Haiqing's first reaction was anger. Yi Xing had ignored his warning and obtained first place in the assessment. This already made Wang Haiqing furious. Now, Yi Xing had challenged his disciple Xianxia in front of everyone's eyes. This provoked his nerves even more. However, the anger only existed for a moment. Wang Haiqing's heart was filled with joy. Xianxia was a master at the peak of 7th stage, while Yi Xing had only defeated a few masters at the early stage of 7th stage. Although he had won cleanly, the difference in strength between the early stage of 7th stage and the peak of 7th stage was not small. Wang Haiqing did not think that Yi Xing would be a match for Xianxia. Wang Haiqing was worried about how to deal with Yi Xing. Now that he had borrowed Xianxia's hand to deal with him, it was not a bad idea. Wang Haiqing immediately transmitted his voice to Xianxia using internal energy. Xing, don't have any scruples. Just beat him to death. If he admits defeat and begs for mercy, humiliate him. If he doesn't, then beat him until he's crippled. Hearing this, the corners of Xianxia's mouth curled up. His eyes revealed a trace of pride. He thought to himself, Yi Xing, this time I'll make you beg for death. Xianxia quickly walked into the center of the square. His eyes were cold and fierce, like a poisonous snake staring at Yi Xing. Yi Xing, don't say that I, Xianxia, am bullying you. You're digging your own grave. Xianxia was delighted, but he pretended to be arrogant and cold. He said coldly, Come, I'd like to see how strong you, the #1 freshman, are. You dare to challenge me, Xianxia? Xianxia, don't ruin the reputation of our advanced class. Deal with him hard. Teach this kid a lesson. Let him know the difference between a freshman and an advanced class student. Teach him a hard lesson as a warning to others. Let the freshmen know the consequences of disrespecting their seniors. Because of their standpoint, the majority of the advanced class students naturally stood on Xianxia's side. Many of them shouted loudly. Only Wei Qingxian clenched her fists and silently cheered Yi Xing on. Yi Xing, you must win. Do your best. Do your best. Although the battle between Yi Xing and Xianxia could be seen as a battle between a freshman and a senior, the advanced class students supported Xianxia because of this. However, not many of the freshmen supported Yi Xing. They didn't have the slightest bit of confidence in Yi Xing. In fact, many of the advanced class students felt that Yi Xing had taken first place in the exam and even took the opportunity to ridicule Yi Xing. As for the elders of the academy, even Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran, who had just publicly praised Yi Xing, couldn't help but furrow their brows at this moment. They felt that Yi Xing was too arrogant. Between Yi Xing and Xianxia, they naturally favored Xianxia more. The entire Zishan Academy, from top to bottom, was almost one-sided. They felt that Yi Xing was asking for trouble by challenging Xianxia. He was too arrogant. Those who had confidence in Yi Xing were few and far between. The discussions that came from all around were all in favor of Xianxia. This made Xianxia feel very proud. He had a lofty and arrogant smile on his face. However, his eyes didn't soften because of the smile on his face. Instead, they became even more fierce, vicious, and filled with danger. Yi Xing's posture was like a mountain, unmoving like a mountain. The unfavorable discussions around him didn't affect him in the slightest. His eyes were clear and full of confidence, as if he could see through everything. A faint smile hung on the corner of his mouth, which made him look harmless. However, what he said was shocking. Xianxia, the grudge between us can't be solved with a normal fight. Do you dare to fight in the life and death arena? Fight on the life and death arena? Whether it was the new students, the old students, or the elders of the academy, everyone's face changed in an instant. There was no victory or defeat on the life and death arena, only life and death. Yi Xing's words meant that he wanted to fight to the death with Xianxia. It was either him or Xianxia. Where did his confidence come from? This shocked everyone and made them incomparably surprised. Even Wei Qingxian, who could be said to be the person who had the most confidence in Yi Xing, couldn't help but widen her eyes in shock. How much courage did it take to fight to the death with a peak stage 7 martial path stage 6? How much courage did it take? Ha! He's a big idiot. A big idiot. A senior laughed out loud. His laughter was insolent. Following his laughter, Ling Ling and Luo Luo also laughed. However, most of the people didn't laugh. Yi Xing's posture was like a mountain, and his temperament was otherworldly. He looked like a martial Dao master who had merged with heaven and earth. How could he be a big idiot? Definitely not. Those who laughed at Yi Xing for being a big idiot were definitely the ones who were the big idiot. Most of the people weren't idiots, so they didn't laugh. Instead, they were surprised and confused. They were surprised by Yi Xing's courage and didn't understand where Yi Xing's confidence came from. He dared to fight to the death with Xianxia. What was he relying on? Xianxia's acceptance of the challenge immediately made the advanced genius class students' blood boil. They all shouted loudly and their voices shook the sky. There was nothing more exciting than a life and death battle. After it was posted, I rarely spoke in the V chapter. But today I had to say something. I'm very thankful for today. When I woke up, I was pleasantly surprised. My monthly votes broke 100 and there were many brothers who tipped me. I'm very thankful. Let's talk about Arrow God's update. Everyone knows about Chocolate situation. Writing Arrow God and Immeasurable at the same time is very busy every day. However, I'll maintain the daily updates. 2 chapters guaranteed. The monthly votes will be calculated separately. The update time is currently set to the first chapter from 12 to 1 o'clock. The second chapter from 19 to 20 o'clock. The additional updates will be after 8 o'clock at night. This time, I'd like to express my gratitude. I also hope that the brothers will continue to vote for us. We have the strength to take first place. Chapter 106. Yi Xing and Xianxia had both signed a life and death contract. They would fight to the death in the Purple Mountain Plaza. All the students, deacons, teachers, and the 3 vice deans of the Purple Mountain Academy were witnesses to this life and death battle. Among them, the most excited ones were Xianxia and Xianxia, the 2 juniors of the Xiong family from Firmament City. Yi Xing had killed the Xiong family's martial Dao master in front of everyone in Firmament City. He had trampled on the Xiong family's dignity. At this moment, Yi Xing and the most outstanding genius in the history of the Xiong family, Xianxia and Xianxia, were in a life and death battle. As juniors of the Xiong family, Xianxia and Xianxia were naturally excited. They were looking forward to the moment when Yi Xing would be killed by Xianxia. Other than Wei Qingxian, Yi Xing was most worried about Yi Xing Yi Yunlong and Yi Yundai. The 2 juniors of the Firmament City's Ye family were also extremely nervous for Yi Xing. As for Yi Qingyan and Yi Qingzhou, who were also from Firmament City, they were incomparably shocked. They had personally witnessed Yi Xing's rise in Firmament City. Regardless of the outcome of this life and death battle, Yi Xing was able to obtain first place in the freshman assessment within a month of entering the Purple Mountain Academy. Furthermore, he dared to challenge Xianxia, who was at the peak of the 7th stage. This was already a miracle. Xianxia! Xianxia! Many seniors shouted in unison, cheering for Xianxia. At this moment, even though Wei Qingxian, Yi Yunlong, and Yi Yundai were hoping for Yi Xing to win, they were too embarrassed to shout for Yi Xing. They could only silently cheer for Yi Xing in their hearts. In the square, Xianxia had already unsheathed his saber. The blade of the saber was like the moon, glittering with cold light. It was an extremely sharp treasured saber. Xianxia threw the scabbard to the side. Seeing that Yixing was only wearing a pair of gold-threaded gloves, Xianxia sneered, "You don't need a bow?" In Xianxia's letter to his family, he wrote about how Yixing had killed Xiong Batian with a bow and arrow. Therefore, even though Xianxia had never seen Yixing's bow and arrow, he was very afraid of it. In his opinion, Yixing's greatest trump card should be his bow and arrow. "Killing you is more than enough with my hands. I don't need a bow," Yixing said casually. "Arrogant," Xianxia shouted angrily, but in fact he was actually relieved. In his opinion, if Yixing didn't use a bow and arrow, he definitely wouldn't be a match for him. But Xianxia suddenly attacked. He waved the treasured saber in his hand, and the saber radiance swept out like a crescent moon. It was an upper-grade martial arts technique, waning moon saber technique. This was the complete upper-grade martial arts technique of the Xiong family. Zishan Academy also had it. Under Wang Haiqing's guidance, Xianxia's waning moon saber technique had far surpassed the small success stage and was not far from the great success stage. With this level of attainment in the waning moon saber technique, Xianxia's strength was definitely top-notch among martial arts masters of the same level. With the peak of the 7th level of internal force and a saber technique that was close to the great success stage, Xianxia's saber slashed out. Even if it was just a saber radiance, the power was extremely terrifying. It was not inferior to the full blow of a 7th level martial arts master. With such a terrifying saber radiance, even if Yixing's bronze tactics had been perfected, if he was hit by it, his skin and flesh would be split open, and even his bones would be injured. Yixing did not dare to underestimate it. Yixing stepped on the Big Dipper and his body floated up. The saber radiance shot out from under his feet. Yixing's attainment in body movement was extremely high. Xianxia had already expected that the first saber would be dodged. When Yixing's body rose up and before he landed, Xianxia changed his saber technique and suddenly slashed down. Waning Moon Slash. The treasured saber slashed down vertically, and the saber radiance burst out, turning into a huge arc that instantly slashed towards Yixing. The speed of Xianxia's saber was much faster than Ling Fengjue, Bian Chuxing, and the others. Almost as soon as the saber was slashed out, the crescent-like saber radiance had already arrived in front of Yixing. Even with Yixing's body movement speed, it was difficult for him to dodge it. Compared to the thick crescent-like saber radiance, Yixing's body seemed very small. Looking at Yixing under the saber radiance, many people gasped, and many people's eyes lit up with excitement. Faced with this terrifying saber radiance, Yixing stretched out his palm and pushed forward, using the inferior martial arts technique, Great Monument Hand. In the assessment battle, Yixing had used the Great Monument Hand to severely injure Bian Chuxing. Now it was the same move. Another inferior martial arts technique? Does he think Xianxia is Bian Chuxing? In an instant, someone cried out in surprise. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. Yixing wanted to use the inferior martial arts technique, Great Monument Hand, to fight against Xianxia's saber radiance. It was simply unbelievable. Yixing's attainments in martial arts techniques had increased greatly in the process of enlightenment. Although he did not upgrade his middle-grade martial arts techniques to the real spirit stage, his low-grade martial arts techniques had reached the spirit stage. Once a martial arts technique reached the spirit stage, even an inferior martial arts technique would have extremely terrifying power. Even a level 8 or level 9 grandmaster would find it difficult to cultivate an inferior martial arts technique to the spirit stage, and they would not be able to see the attainments in martial arts techniques at this stage. This was because the spirit of martial arts techniques could not be seen. It could only be sensed by the target of the attack. Xianxia sensed the spirit in Yixing's palm. In his eyes, Yixing's palm rapidly grew and then collided with the dazzling saber radiance. Bang! With a loud bang, the crescent saber radiance that was more than 10 feet long was actually shattered by Yixing's palm. Yixing's body also floated back at this moment. With the help of the saber radiance's power, he flew back several feet and was safe and sound. Yixing frowned slightly. He could feel the pain from his palm. The opponent's saber radiance was indeed terrifying. If he had not worn the golden silk gloves and directly clashed with his palm, his skin would definitely have been broken and blood would have flowed out. Of course, Yi Xing's golden silk gloves were only a middle-grade weapon. If it were an upper-grade weapon, then Yi Xing could have shattered the saber radiance without any damage. Compared to Yi Xing's frown, Xianxia was even more shocked. He was very clear about the power of this saber radiance. Although it was not a direct hit by the saber radiance, it could easily kill any level 6 martial artist. However, it was shattered by Yi Xing's palm. This was because it was extremely difficult to achieve the spirit in martial arts attainments. Even for martial artists above the master level, 99% of them could only cultivate martial arts to the edge of perfection, which was commonly known as the transformative realm. Therefore, even in the martial arts manuals, there were no records of the spirit entering the transformative realm. Almost all martial artists thought that the transformative realm was the limit of martial arts. Therefore, even though Xianxia felt the spirit of Yi Xing's martial arts technique, he did not understand why. He only felt that Yi Xing's attack was too strange and too terrifying. It could actually create an illusion effect. Thinking of how Yi Xing's palm suddenly became bigger in his eyes, Xianxia was extremely shocked. This was because he was far away from Yi Xing, so the spirit he felt was not strong. Therefore, he saw that Yi Xing's palm only became bigger to the size of the saber radiance. If the two of them were to fight in close combat, Yi Xing's palm would definitely be overwhelming in Xianxia's eyes. It was almost infinite, and that kind of pressure would be 10 times stronger. The surrounding audience was naturally more surprised than Xianxia. They did not feel the spirit of Yi Xing's martial arts. They only saw that Yi Xing used the low-grade martial arts technique, Great Monument Hand, and smashed Xianxia's saber radiance. This was simply too incredible. Even though it happened right in front of their eyes, the students still felt that it was unbelievable. The elders of the academy were not much better. They were filled with shock and confusion. You being able to block my saber is out of my expectations, but I am sure that you will not feel good after blocking my saber. I would like to see how many sabers you can block. Xianxia coldly snorted. He once again struck out with his saber. The saber radiance was like the moon, explosively chopping towards Yi Xing. The more shocked he was towards Yi Xing, the more intense his killing intent towards Yi Xing. This was because Yi Xing made him feel afraid. He had to eliminate him as soon as possible. Otherwise, when Yi Xing became stronger, it was very likely that the Xiong clan would be the ones to be eliminated. In the face of Xianxia's saber radiance, Yi Xing still used the Great Monument Hand. In his hands, the low-grade martial arts technique became magical. It had a magical power that could turn something rotten into something magical. It blocked Xianxia's terrifying saber radiance. While using the Great Monument Hand to block, Yi Xing also used the 7-star steps to the limit. The 7-star steps of the transformative realm merged with the wind force. Its speed was almost as fast as lightning. Even though Xianxia's saber radiance had reached an extremely terrifying level, it was still unable to hit Yi Xing out of the 2 sabers. At least one of them was dodged by Yi Xing using his movement technique. This caused Xianxia to waste his energy. As for Yi Xing, he only blocked one of the 2 sabers. This greatly reduced the consumption of his inner strength. Yi Xing's martial arts attainment was much higher than Xianxia's. The key was the thickness and strength of his inner strength. Naturally, he had to think of ways to save his inner strength and exhaust his opponent's inner strength. Waning moon filling the sky. Seeing this, Xianxia shouted and changed his saber technique. Xiao 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 xiao. The saber in Xianxia's hand danced, almost turning into a curtain of light. In an instant, countless waning moon saber radiance danced in the air, densely covering all directions. This waning moon filling the sky was indeed as its name suggested. Although it could not fill up the entire sky, Xianxia's area of more than 10 feet was covered by the waning moon saber radiance. It was almost impossible to dodge. Yi Xing's eyes narrowed. This waning moon filling the sky restrained his movement technique. It was impossible for him to dodge more than half of the attacks like before. Since he could not dodge, Yixing did not bother to dodge. He stood still like a mountain. Then, he formed palms with his hands and struck out continuously. It was so fast that there were no shadows. Low-grade martial arts technique, consecutive palms. In Xianxia's eyes, a dense number of palms appeared in front of him and collided with the waning moon saber radiance. Bang 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 bang, a series of explosions sounded. One after another, the waning moon saber radiance was shattered by Yixing in the blink of an eye. The waning moon filling the sky had countless waning moon saber radiance. Although it covered a wide area, the power of each waning moon saber radiance was much weaker. The consecutive palms was the same as the Great Monument Palm. The speed of the palms was faster and the number of attacks increased. The power was reduced. However, it was the best technique to deal with the waning moon filling the sky. Is this all you've got? It's time for me to make my move. The waning moon saber radiance disappeared. Yixing was safe and sound. He chuckled. Chapter 107. Xianxia's eyes flashed with a sinister glint. His expression was solemn. From Yixing's words, it seemed that he hadn't used his full strength yet. This made Xianxia very unhappy. He had almost used his full strength, but Yixing hadn't. Didn't that mean that Yixing's strength was above his? This was impossible. He couldn't believe it. At this moment, the spectating students had already quieted down. No one was cheering for Xianxia anymore. From the exchange of blows just now, everyone could see that Yixing did indeed have the strength to fight Xianxia. Everyone's eyes were filled with deep shock. Even the elders of the academy were shocked. Yixing's strength was beyond their expectations. Especially Wang Haiqing. Not only was he shocked, but his face was also gloomy. A ball of anger was burning in his heart. Yixing ignored his warning and took first place in the assessment. Not only did he go against his wishes, but he also caused Mo Xiaozong to lose his position as a teacher of the gifted class. This already made him hate Yixing to the bone. Now, his desire to see Xianxia teach Yixing a lesson had failed. This made the anger in his heart even stronger. In the square, after Yixing finished speaking, he immediately launched a counterattack against Xianxia. Yixing's figure was like lightning. He quickly pounced in front of Xianxia. At this moment, Xianxia just happened to slash down with his blade. Yixing's hands were like butterflies flitting through flowers as he slapped towards Xianxia. Immediately, his hands passed through Xianxia's blade light. Xianxia was naturally much stronger than Ling Fengjue, especially his waning moon blade technique. It was profound and as fast as lightning. Even if Yixing's flower-piercing hand had reached perfection, it was still impossible for him to pass through all the blade lights and attack the hilt. As soon as Yixing's hands touched the blade, he was unable to go any further. If he went any further, he would be injured by the treasured blade. Bang! Bang! Yixing's hands avoided the sharp edge of the treasured saber and slapped on the saber's body. Immediately, the saber's body trembled and tilted to the side. Yixing scanned the saber with his superbrain, and he knew all the openings and weaknesses in his opponent's moves. The spots where Yixing struck were the two nodes on the saber where the qi was transferred. With Yixing's strike, Xianxia's internal qi transfer was immediately interrupted. The power of the saber was instantly reduced by half, and that was why Yixing was able to deflect the saber. Otherwise, Xianxia's saber was extremely powerful. Even if he had hit it, it would have been difficult to change the trajectory of the attack in an instant. From this, it could be seen that the superbrain's superbrain scan was very effective in a battle. Kill! Yixing shouted. Taking advantage of the opportunity when his opponent's treasured saber was deflected to the side, his body pushed forward like a mountain. A surging aura was produced from Yixing's body. Boom! Yixing's anger was completely released at this moment. He glared at Yixing like a vajra and threw out a punch. Low-grade martial arts technique, Raging Steel Fist. Xianxia was shocked. At this moment, Yixing suddenly became incomparably tall in his eyes. When he threw out a punch, his fist was like a mountain crashing toward him. In the instant he was shocked, Xianxia's martial arts aura showed a flaw. Once there was a flaw, it quickly collapsed under the pressure of Yi Xing's terrifying aura. When an ordinary person was in the state of qi, he might be able to punch out half of his usual strength. However, when he was not in the state of qi, he might be able to punch out less than half of his usual strength. This was the difference between qi and qi. Yi Xing's aura was at its peak. It was extremely powerful, and his punch was like a mountain. It was extremely terrifying. On the other hand, Xianxia aura was suppressed and completely collapsed. It was difficult for him to fully display his strength. If Yi Xing's opponent was Ling Fengjue or Bian Chuxing, this punch would be enough to defeat them and severely injure them. However, Yi Xing's opponent was Xianxia. He was much stronger than Ling Tongjue and Bian Chuxing. Even though his aura was suppressed, Xianxia did not completely lose his fighting spirit. He shouted angrily and stopped his aura from collapsing. At the same time, he instantly withdrew his treasured saber. Clang! Yi Xing's punch did not hit Xianxia's body. Instead, it was blocked by the saber, causing a shocking explosion. The raging steel fist was a ferocious fist with astonishing power. Yi Xing's mastery of the raging steel fist had reached the acme of perfection. It had the effect of turning something rotten into something magical, and the power it displayed was even more terrifying. At the moment of the explosion, Xianxia felt the treasured saber in his hand shake violently. A terrifying force rushed out from the saber. Xianxia felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow. His body suddenly retreated backward. His body also shook violently. The blood, qi, and internal breath in his body were also shaken. It was extremely uncomfortable. Whoosh! Xianxia was blasted more than 10 meters away by Yi Xing's punch. After landing, he also retreated continuously. Hiss! The sound of people sucking in cold air was heard. All the students were shocked. They looked at Xianxia who was blasted away. They were all dumbfounded. Those seniors who were cheering for Xianxia, as well as Xianqifeng and Xianqikai, all turned pale. They were shocked and could not believe what had happened. Wei Qingxian, Yi Yunlong, and Yi Yundai were shocked but also overjoyed. Yi Xing had really created a miracle. Boom! Yi Xing took advantage of the situation to attack. His figure shot forward like an arrow. He continued to use the furious steel fist. With absolute speed and absolute power, he fiercely attacked Xianxia. Xianxia retreated a total of 7 steps before he could stabilize his body. The blood in his body was still surging. At this time, Yi Xing's fist was already coming. There was no time for him to adjust his breathing. He could only wave his saber to block again. Clang! Another explosive sound was heard as the blade was bent by Yi Xing's punch, and then bounced back in an instant, forcing Xianxia to retreat again. This time, the blood in his body shook violently and surged even more violently. He felt a sweet taste in his throat and a mouthful of blood gushed out. Previously, his frenzied attacks on Yi Xing had already caused the circulation of his blood and qi to quicken, leaving behind a hidden injury. Now that he had been struck twice in a row, the rapid flow of blood and qi in his body finally went out of control, and a portion of it went berserk. Xianxia was sent flying for the second time. This time, he retreated even further and spat out a mouthful of blood. This caused the surrounding people to cry out in surprise. At this moment, everyone was shocked. On the highest floor of the VIP building, Wang Haiqing's face was extremely gloomy. He narrowed his eyes. Xianxia's injury made the anger in his heart even more intense. Xianxia was sent flying for the second time. This time, he did not resist the impact of the force in his body. Instead, he risked some internal injuries and retreated with the force. In an instant, he pulled away from Yi Xing. When Yi Xing punched for the third time, Xianxia roared. The saber in his hand turned into a cold glint and instantly shot out toward Yi Xing. This attack of throwing the saber surprised Yi Xing, but it was not a problem for Yi Xing. Yi Xing noticed the moment Xianxia was about to throw the saber. The angle of Yi Xing's fist changed slightly, and the treasured saber that was thrown at him was hit by the saber's body, which immediately flew to the side. Fatal chain kick. Xianxia's figure followed closely behind the saber. His legs broke through the air and in an instant he launched countless kicks. Fatal chain kick, an upper-class martial arts technique. Xianxia's attainment in the fatal chain kick was not below that of the waning moon saber technique. The combination of throwing the saber and kicking was flawless. He took advantage of the fact that the opponent was blocking the saber and had not reacted. It was indeed impossible to guard against. No wonder it was called the fatal chain kick. However, Yixing scanned Xianxia's every move clearly. Even though Yixing's punch had blown away the saber and his fist momentum had been exhausted, Yixing was not unable to react. However, Yixing's superbrain scanned the area and captured the trajectory of the palm print. It had shot out from the window of the highest floor of the VIP building just a moment ago. Chapter 108. The VIP building was more than 70 meters away from Yixing and Xianxia. More than 70 meters was not a short distance. Not to mention a 7th-level master, even an 8th-level guru would find it difficult to use his internal strength to attack more than 70 meters away to kill the enemy. Wang Haiqing was able to send a palm print more than 70 meters away in the blink of an eye from such a long distance. This level of skill was simply appalling. Most importantly, this palm print was as big as a door. If this palm were to hit the target, it was very likely that the target would be smashed into meat paste like a fly swatter swatting a mosquito. Yixing did not continue to attack Xianxia. At this moment, he felt an extremely terrifying life and death crisis. Soft bone palm. Yixing brushed his hands in an instant. All the bones in his body softened and his body became as soft as a snake. The moment Yixing came into contact with this huge palm print, he integrated the wind force into his lightness skill and performed the flying swan skill. Boom! With a loud explosion, Yixing was instantly sent flying by the huge palm print. However, his body was as light as a feather, like a piece of paper. He floated in the air for more than 30 meters before landing on the ground. When Yixing landed on the ground, a warrior in his 50s appeared next to Xianxia. This man was wearing a black brocade robe and had a tall stature. His whole body was releasing an aura that was as deep as the sea, which was very terrifying. This person was Wang Haiqing, one of the 3 deputy deans. In such a short time, he had appeared in the middle of the square from the highest floor of the VIP building. Wang Haiqing's speed was simply uncanny. All the students did not see how Wang Haiqing appeared. They only knew that in the blink of an eye, he was not beside Xianxia. In the blink of an eye, he had already appeared beside Xianxia. Sheng. Wang Haiqing pushed Yixing back with one palm. After appearing beside Xianxia, he did not attack again. Instead, he looked at Xianxia with a haggard expression. Xianxia's mouth was bleeding. There were more than 10 footprints on his chest. A large part of his chest had caved in. Obviously, his bones were broken. He was seriously injured and had already fainted. Seeing that Xianxia was so badly injured, Wang Haiqing's eyes were burning with anger again. Yixing landed more than 100 feet away. He retreated nearly 10 steps before he could stabilize his body. His attainment in the soft bone palm was extremely high. It had reached the perfection realm. In addition, in a life-or-death situation, he was able to perform exceptionally well. It had almost reached the level of perfection. In addition, he had integrated the flying swan skill into the wind force. Yixing's body was as light as a feather. Therefore, although the power contained in the palm print was terrifying, it only sent him flying more than 100 feet away and did not hurt him. Of course, this was also because he was too far away from Wang Haiqing. They were more than 70 meters apart. Although Wang Haiqing's palm print was frightening, it also lost a lot of power. If they were closer, Yixing would definitely be seriously injured. Wang Haiqing grabbed Xianxia's shoulders and helped him up. Seeing that Xianxia's breathing was weak and unconscious, a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. Little bastard! Wang Haiqing's gaze turned towards Yixing. His expression was frightening and almost crazy. Many students, seeing Wang Haiqing's expression, were shocked and subconsciously retreated. Yixing looked straight at Wang Haiqing's frightening gaze, but his expression did not change. He loudly said, Xianxia and I have signed a life and death contract. In this decisive battle, life and death are determined by fate. No one is allowed to interfere. Vice Principal Wang, are you the king of the Zishan Academy? Can you trample on the rules and oppress students at will? In front of so many people, what do you think the teachers and students of the Zishan Academy are? What do you think Principal Zishan Ho is? Yi Xing's words were stern and righteous. Hearing this, the majority of the students felt relieved. At this moment, they were all standing on Yi Xing's side. A battle of life and death was a matter of life and death. What kind of big deal was this? If someone could casually interfere in such a battle of life and death, which student would not feel suffocated? If there came a day when they were in a life and death situation with another person, and the result was that the other person could only kill them and they could not kill the other person, even if they had the upper hand, they would still be stopped. Any student would be furious at this thought. Of course, when they heard Yi Xing's words, not only did they feel relieved, but they also broke out in cold sweat for Yi Xing. They also admired Yi Xing's courage. Wang Haiqing was clearly furious at this moment. Especially from his expression, his heart was filled with killing intent. Yi Xing did not show any weakness in front of Wang Haiqing. Could it be that he was not afraid that Wang Haiqing would kill him in a fit of anger? All the students were shocked. However, Yi Xing could clearly see that even if Wang Haiqing had 10,000 times the courage, Wang Haiqing would not dare to touch him. This was because Wang Haiqing was only the vice principal of the Zishan Academy. Above him, there was still Principal Zishan Ho suppressing him. Wang Haiqing's interference in a life and death battle was already a violation of the rules. If he dared to kill him in front of everyone, that would be an even worse action. The consequences would definitely be severe. Zishan Ho would not allow such a thing to happen in the Zishan Academy. If the vice principal became enraged and killed someone in front of everyone, who would dare to come to such an academy? Which family would dare to let their most outstanding younger generation enter such an academy? In this way, if Wang Haiqing was not severely punished by Zishan Ho, the entire Zishan Academy would be crippled. Moreover, just now, the two vice principals Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran were singing a different tune from Wang Haiqing, publicly praising Yi Xing. But now, the two of them did not say a word. This was clearly a bit strange. Since the two vice principals Wu and Li Xiaoran were enemies with Wang Haiqing, it was impossible for them to not stop Wang Haiqing from breaking the rules. Since they did not stop him, there was only one possibility, and that was that Wang Haiqing did not break the rules enough. They were probably waiting for Wang Haiqing to make a move. If Wang Haiqing dared to kill Yi Xing, the two of them would be able to kill him in one fell swoop. Therefore, as long as Wang Haiqing had the slightest bit of brain, he would not make a move against Yi Xing. Therefore, Yi Xing was very calm when facing the angry Wang Haiqing. The truth was just as Yi Xing expected. Even though Wang Haiqing was extremely angry and his killing intent towards Yi Xing was incomparably strong, he did not dare to do anything to Yi Xing. Wang Haiqing only snorted angrily, then carried Xianxia in his arms. His figure was like lightning, quickly leaving the square, and soon disappeared from sight. The students all let out a sigh of relief in their hearts. When they looked at Yi Xing again, their gazes were resolutely different. Just as he entered the Purple Mountain Academy, he was eliminated from the gifted class and became a student of the common class. Moreover, in the first month of being a student of the common class, he was punished and did not attend a single day of class. In this short span of a month, Yi Xing became first place in the new student assessment. Moreover, he defeated the elite of the advanced gifted class, Xianxia, and even confronted the vice principal Wang Haiqing without any change in expression. These events caused the majority of the students' view of Yi Xing to undergo a 180-degree change. From the initial contempt and disdain, to shock and jealousy, and finally to admiration and admiration. The matter ended when Xianxia was taken away by Wang Haiqing. The students dispersed in shock and admiration. Yi Xing had become an influential figure among the students. There was no one who did not know of him. Wherever Yi Xing went, the majority of the students would respectfully address him as Senior Brother Yi. Even the advanced class students found it difficult to be arrogant when they saw Yixing. Even the students who had a problem with Yixing would take a detour when they saw Yixing. They were very afraid of Yixing. Senior brother Yixing, if the family knew of your progress in the Purple Mountain Academy, I don't know how happy they would be. The entire Ye family is proud of you. Yi Yunlong and Yundai did not leave with the students. Instead, they came to Yixing. Yi Yunlong's voice was filled with awe and admiration for Yixing. Wei Qingxian also did not leave. He came to Yixing, waved his fist and said, Yixing, you have created another miracle. Let's make a bet and see who will become a martial Dao master first. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo also did not leave. However, they did not say anything. They only quietly followed behind Yixing, looking at Yixing's back. Their eyes were filled with admiration. The two of them were very glad that the person Yixing had decided to kill was Nie Dong and not one of them. They were also glad that they had made the right choice. The matter ended just like that. Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran, the two vice principals, had said that Yixing was a pillar of the academy and praised Yixing. However, in the end, the two of them did not ask for Yixing to return to the gifted class. After the glory, Yixing was still a student of the ordinary class. It was only when Yixing, Wei Qingxian, Yi Yunlong, and Yi Yundai parted ways and returned to dorm 175 that the ordinary class 10 teacher, Cui Haoran, came to talk to him about his return to the gifted class. Cui Haoran said, Yixing, your performance today shocked the entire academy. Even if your heavenly fate realm is not high, your strength is great. The academy values you greatly. If you want to return to the gifted class, you can apply to the academy. Your wish will definitely be granted. I have to apply to return to the gifted class for the academy to approve? They really do value me. After a month, Yixing found that there was not much difference between being in the ordinary class and the gifted class. The difference was 1 star accumulating pill per month, which was only 12 pills per year. And he had won first place in the new student assessment. The reward he received was not only 12-star accumulating pills, but also 3 high-grade medicinal herbs. If the academy asked him to return to the gifted class, Yixing would naturally return, but if he applied himself, Yixing expressed his thoughts to Cui Haoran, I think the ordinary class is good, so I won't apply. In the depths of the academy, in Wang Haiqing's mansion, on a big bed in a room. The blood on Xiong Qixing's mouth had been wiped away and ointment had been applied to his wounds. However, he still did not wake up. Beside the bed, Wang Haiqing clenched his fists and looked at Xiong Qixing with a terrifying flame in his eyes. Hurry up and get better. Father will definitely avenge you. I will not forgive that little bastard, absolutely not. The people of the Purple Mountain Academy were very curious. Xiong Qixing was not the student with the best aptitude, the highest cultivation, and the greatest potential in the gifted class. Why did he win the favor of the vice principal Wang Haiqing and become Wang Haiqing's personal disciple? No one would have thought that Xiong Qixing was Wang Haiqing's illegitimate son. Even Xiong Qixing did not know. Today's plot setting took a lot of time, so the update was a bit slow. Sorry. But brothers, please rest assured. Today's update will definitely be updated 4 times. No matter how late it is. Today, the Arrow God has another alliance master. Brother destined for life, I am infinitely grateful. Begging for votes. Chapter 109. Senior Brother Yi, why don't you return to the gifted class? After Haoran left, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo asked in confusion. The treatment of the gifted class was double that of the ordinary class. Which student did not want to be in the gifted class? The reason why Nie Dong, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo obeyed Xiong Qixing was because Xiong Qixing had promised them that he would get them back to the gifted class as soon as possible. From this, it could be seen that the temptation of the gifted class was indeed not low. Now that the academy had asked Yixing to apply to return to the gifted class, he could return. However, Yixing did not want to return, which really surprised Wu Yuan and Ma Bo. Yixing did not want to return because the academy did not directly ask him to return. Instead, he needed to apply himself. His pride was at stake, so he did not want to return. Of course, There was no need to explain this to Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo Yixing smiled faintly and said, I think that cultivating in the ordinary class is not bad. It will not be slower than the gifted class. The most important thing in cultivation is to rely on oneself. If you have ambition in your heart and persevere, you will be able to go far on the martial Tao. A firm heart is more important than superior resources. The first part of the sentence was casual, while the latter part was casual. It was Yixing's martial Tao comprehension. After a pause, Yixing continued, Next, you should also cultivate diligently. I have decided to enter the Clear Sky Mountain range to gain experience soon. I will take you with me. These 2-star accumulating pills are for you. While speaking, Yixing took out 2 high-grade star accumulating pills and gave one to each of them. This time, Yixing had won first place in the freshman assessment and received 12-star accumulating pills as a reward. Moreover, he also received 3 high-grade star accumulating pills, which were enough for him to cultivate for a period of time. It did not matter whether he received more or less high-grade star accumulating pills. Yixing did not return to the gifted class. It was not purely because of his pride. The most important reason was that his progress in the past month had made him understand that there was not much difference between the gifted class and the ordinary class. If he stayed in the Purple Mountain Academy for a few years, the difference in treatment between the gifted class and the ordinary class was still very big. However, Yixing felt that it was unlikely that he would stay in the Purple Mountain Academy for a few years. His goal was to become a martial saint within a year. Once he became a martial saint, he would be above the vice headmaster of the academy. Why should he care about the treatment of the academy? Furthermore, the Purple Mountain Academy did not even have a student in the 9th stage of the martial path. If Yixing became a martial saint in a year, who would be able to teach him? At that time, there was an 80 to 90% chance that he would not stay in Mount Indigo Academy. As such, he didn't care about the difference in treatment between the gifted class and the normal class. To Yixing, the superbrain was his best teacher. He should make full use of his strengths and train in Emerald Cloud Mountain Range. Only then could he grow faster. Therefore, Yixing had already made a decision. When he used up all the resources he had, he would go to the Emerald Cloud Mountain Range to train. The current him could enter the depths of the Emerald Cloud Mountain Range to hunt high-level vicious beasts and find high-grade medicinal ingredients. There was a huge gap between the 6th and 7th stages of the martial path. Yixing could not just stay in the academy and wait for the academy to give him resources. There were many students in the academy and the resources allocated were very little. If he wanted to quickly break through to the 7th stage of the martial path, it was inevitable that he would go to the Emerald Cloud Mountain Range to train. During the day, Yixing went to the ordinary class 10. During the class, Yixing divided his attention. While he cultivated the Qingyuan art, he also paid attention to the changes in the class. In the past, Yixing could carry water and cultivate at the same time. Now, it was naturally easier for him to cultivate at the same time. In class, Yixing was completely a top student. Whether it was theory or practice, Yixing could perfectly answer all the questions. At night, Yixing cultivated the upper-grade body refining technique, silver body technique. His bronze body technique had long been perfected. However, cultivating the body refining technique required medicinal ingredients. Yixing had not had time to collect medicinal ingredients, so he stopped cultivating the body refining technique for a period of time. Now that Yixing had obtained 3 upper-grade medicinal ingredients, he naturally wanted to take this opportunity to cultivate the body refining technique. If his silver body technique was cultivated to the great accomplishment realm, it would be much easier to defeat Xianxia. These 3 upper-grade medicinal ingredients were all sealwort fruit. The sealwort fruit was much larger than the blood dike. Therefore, although they were both upper-grade medicinal ingredients, 1 sealwort fruit was at least equivalent to the total medicinal strength of 10 blood dike. The medicinal strength of 3 sealwort fruits was no less than 30 blood dike. Moreover, Yixing had eaten too many blood dike, so continuing to eat would not have much effect. However, he had not eaten the sealwort fruit yet. It was very effective for his silver body technique cultivation. Time passed day by day and soon 10 days had passed. Originally, Yixing estimated that even if his cultivation method was of a higher grade, allowing him to refine the high-rank accumulating star pills faster than other cultivators, it would still take him at least a month to refine and absorb 10 high-rank accumulating star pills. However, to his surprise, in just 10 days, he had absorbed and refined all the medicinal strength of 10 upper-grade star accumulation pills. His cultivation had been promoted to the peak of LV6. Other martial artists would take at least 2 or 3 months to refine 10 upper-grade star accumulation pills. Is the effect of Qingyuan technique so incredible after being improved to the supreme level? Yixing felt strange and could not understand. He could only attribute the reason to his supreme level Qingyuan technique. Not only did Yixing refine and absorb the upper-grade star accumulation pills quickly, but so did the sealwort fruit. In 10 days, Yixing had absorbed more than 90% of the medicinal strength of the 3 sealwort fruits, and his silver body technique had broken through to the great accomplishment realm as he wished. Yixing had only used 3 yellow essence fruits to cultivate the silver body technique to the profound realm. It was not easy to cultivate an upper-grade body refining technique. In fact, other martial artists could not cultivate the silver body technique to the profound realm even if they had 10 yellow essence fruits. The reasons why Yixing could do so were: firstly, Yixing's bronze body technique had been cultivated to the perfection realm and was extremely consolidated. Secondly, Yixing's skeleton cultivation was complete. The further he progressed, the more important the complete skeleton cultivation was. Thirdly, Yixing had used the superbrain to deduce and improve the silver body technique, so he had the best cultivation method. The resources of the body technique were naturally important, but the body's absorption of resources was also important. With the same resources, different martial artists' final attainments in the body technique were absolutely different. That was the difference in the body's absorption of resources. Because of these 3 reasons, it was very difficult for other martial artists to cultivate the upper-grade body technique to the great accomplishment realm. Even if Yixing put in 10 times the effort and 10 times the resources, he might not be able to achieve it. Firstly, it was difficult to cultivate the upper-grade body technique. Secondly, when a martial artist reached the 7th level of cultivation, the internal strength became very important. Martial artists began to focus on the internal strength and ignore the physical body. Therefore, almost no 7th-level martial artists could cultivate the upper-grade body technique to the great accomplishment realm. Even for 8th-level martial artists, there were not many who could cultivate the upper-grade body technique to the great accomplishment realm. The 3 sealwort fruits and 10 upper-grade star accumulation pills were all consumed. Without the cultivation resources, he did not know how long it would take for him to reach the 7th level of the martial Tao with the resources of 1 upper-grade star accumulation pill per month. It should be time for him to go to the Qingyun Mountains to gain experience. Yixing asked Chu Haoren for a leave of absence. Regardless of whether it was theory class or practical class, Yixing was able to answer all of Chu Haoren's questions with full marks. Sometimes, his answers were even more comprehensive and accurate than Chu Haoren. Chu Haoren felt that there was nothing he could teach Yixing. Yixing's request for leave was naturally approved. Even Yixing's leave of absence for Wu Yuan and Ma Bo was approved by Chu Haoren. If it were other freshmen, it was basically impossible for them to leave the academy for a long time. The 3 of them took 3 demonic horses from the academy and left the Purple Mountain Academy, heading towards the Emerald Cloud Mountains. Vice Principal, Yixing has left the academy. I heard that he asked for a leave of absence to train. He went to the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. Just as Yixing left the academy, Wang Haiqing's spy reported to him. Wang Haiqing's eyes lit up. Because the conflict between him and Yixing was known by all the teachers and students of the Zishan Academy, it was not easy for Wang Haiqing to deal with Yixing in the academy. He would be gossiped about. If Yixing had left the academy, it would be easy to deal with. Going out to gain experience had a certain degree of danger. It was normal for him to die outside. Wang Haiqing immediately went to the Beast Garden. As the vice principal, he had a flying mount, a high-grade vicious beast, Blue Wind Eagle. The demon horses that Yixing and the other 2 rode were mid-grade vicious beasts. They were very fast. Without a flying mount, it would be difficult to catch up. Wang Haiqing had just arrived at the beast garden. Before he could release the blue wind eagle, he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. The sound of something breaking through the air disappeared in an instant and was replaced by the sound of something sharp piercing wood. Wang Haiqing looked towards the direction of the sound. There was a black arrow stuck in the tree beside him. The tail of the arrow was slightly trembling. It was clear that the arrow's power was terrifying. If the target of this arrow was him, Wang Haiqing would not have been able to dodge in such a short period of time. He would have been killed by the arrow. This made Wang Haiqing's back break out in a layer of cold sweat. However, what really made his heart tremble was the owner of this arrow. In the Zishan County, there was only one person who could shoot an arrow to his side without him knowing where the person who shot the arrow was. A voice sounded in Wang Haiqing's ears. As the vice principal, you have been unfair and have failed in your duty. Since you are eager to protect your disciple, I will not argue with you. However, if you harm a student's life, I will not forgive you. There was no one around Wang Haiqing. The person who spoke was clearly using profound inner strength to transmit his voice from 1,000 miles away. Wang Haiqing's face was filled with shock as fear flashed across his eyes. He never expected that Yi Xing would attract the attention of such a person, even to the point of being protected. I will obey the Marquis order. Wang Haiqing was covered in cold sweat. He clasped his hands together and bowed respectfully. The person who transmitted the voice was Zi Shanho. No wonder Wang Haiqing was so frightened. Zi Shanho basically did not interfere with the matters of the academy. Today, he had warned him for Yi Xing. This made Wang Haiqing even more shocked. However, Wang Haiqing was not the only one who was concerned about Yi Xing's whereabouts. 20 miles north of the county city, in a secret room in the mountains, a black-robed man also received the news that Yi Xing had left the Zishan Academy and was heading towards the Qingyun Mountains. My nephew Jing Lung died because of him. My Dark Knight lost a pillar of support. Today, I will personally take his life. After a short while, a high-level vicious beast, the Qingfeng eagle, flew out from the mountains. More than 5 hours without a single monthly ticket? This is not normal. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 110. Third Watch. For Little Adam 888 Alliance Master added Yi Xing was less than 15 kilometers away from the city when he felt an uncomfortable feeling, as if he was being watched. This caused Yi Xing to frown. This feeling was somewhat familiar. He instantly recalled that back then when he returned to Greenleaf Village from Azure Sky City, he also had this feeling. That time, he had been chased down by the masked assassin on the Blue Wind Eagle. That feeling was precisely because of the Blue Wind Eagle's gaze. He immediately looked towards the sky. Sure enough, in the distant sky, there was a black dot flying towards him. Yi Xing looked into the distance and saw that the Blue Wind Eagle was larger than the one the masked assassin rode. High-level ferocious birds and ferocious beasts were equivalent to 7th, 8th, and 9th level martial artists. Similarly, the larger the size of the ferocious birds and ferocious beasts, the more powerful they were. This made Yi Xing frown. This blue wind condor was most likely equivalent to a level 8 grandmaster, which was quite terrifying. The blue wind condor's speed was extremely fast. It was more than 5 times faster than the demonic horse. It was almost like an arrow flying through the air. Let's go back. Yi Xing shouted. He immediately turned around and went back. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo immediately followed. The blue-winged condor arrived very quickly and also discovered it. Although it couldn't see as clearly as Yi Xing, it still knew that it was a vicious bird. The 3 of them spurred their horses to gallop. They had only traveled about a mile when the sound of the blue-winged condor appeared in the sky behind them. It was very close. At this time, Yi Xing's body jumped from the horse's back. He stepped on the horse's back and looked behind him. He immediately took out his bow and arrow. The demonic horse galloped, rising and falling continuously, but Yi Xing stepped on the horse's back. His feet seemed to have taken root, rising and falling along with the horse's back. It was clear that his attainments in Qinggong were very high. When Yi Xing's gaze penetrated and saw the cultivator on the blue-winged condor's back, he was slightly shocked. It was an 8th-level martial artist, and the blue wind condor he was riding was indeed equivalent to an 8th-level martial artist. Yi Xing's archery skills had not been practiced since he came to Mount Indigo Academy. Although his archery skills could allow him to kill stronger enemies, he wasn't confident that he could kill an 8th-level martial artist. But at this moment, he had to make a move even if he wasn't confident. The cultivator on the blue wind condor was much older than the masked man was in his 50s, but he was also wearing tight black clothes and a black mask. He was obviously a group assassin. Yi Xing immediately knocked an arrow on his bow. Whoosh, however, before Yi Xing could draw his bow and shoot an arrow, the sound of something tearing through the air suddenly resounded. A sharp arrow shot over from the distant sky. Even with Yi Xing's super brain scanning, he could only capture a vague trajectory. In an instant, there was a wail and a scream in the sky at the same time. The blue wind condor, which was equivalent to an 8th-level martial artist, suddenly fell, blood spurting out from its heart. The 8th-level martial artist on the condor's back clutched his throat, his eyes filled with disbelief as he died in an instant. After the arrow pierced through the blue wind condor and the 8th-level martial artist, its speed was still very fast. It made a turn in the air and shot into the distance, quickly disappearing. Yi Xing immediately looked into the distance, in the direction where the arrow disappeared. However, there was a small hill about 5 or 6 miles away that blocked his view. In other words, the person who shot the arrow was at least 5 or 6 miles away from the small hill. After shooting an arrow and instantly killing the blue wind condor and the masked 8th-level martial artist, the arrow still had the strength to turn around and shoot back 5 or 6 miles, where it was taken back by the person who shot the arrow. It was 5 or 6 miles away, so wouldn't it be more than 10 miles? This was calculated based on the shortest distance. If the person who shot the arrow was further behind the small hill, then the shooting range would be even further. Yi Xing was shocked. It was the first time he had seen such amazing archery. With such archery skills, not to mention an 8th-level grandmaster, even a 9th-level grandmaster would be killed in an instant. This made Yi Xing's heart palpitate. When would he have such powerful archery skills? Ever since he had perfected the revolving arrow technique, he could control the arrow in the air and not shoot directly. He could also skillfully use his inner strength to turn the arrow around. He thought that his archery was perfect. Now, it seemed that his archery was far from enough. The star continent was not like Earth. Everything here was more magical and terrifying. Yi Xing had no idea what the limit was. Bang, bang. The corpses of the blue wind condor and the martial artist fell to the ground, making 2 loud and small sounds. Yi Xing had already stopped his demonic horse. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo also stopped not far away. Looking at the blue wind condor's corpse, they secretly gasped. The blue wind condor's wings were more than 20 meters wide, almost as big as a house. Senior brother Yi, this was shot by you? Wu Yuan and Ma Bo urged their horses to Yi Xing's side and asked in disbelief. The two of them were spurring their horses forward just now, so they didn't see the scene of the arrow shooting from afar. In fact, even if the two of them looked back, they might not have been able to see the arrow's trajectory. It was simply too fast. Yi Xing shook his head and glanced in the direction where the arrow disappeared. He said, "I don't know who shot that arrow from afar and saved us. This person's archery is too terrifying. He killed the blue wind condor with 1 arrow from a few miles away. And this 8th-level martial artist. I'm afraid that even a 9th-level martial artist would not be able to block this person's arrow." Wu Yuan sucked in a cold breath. Ma Bo exclaimed in shock, "A 9th-stage grandmaster can't even block an arrow? Could it be that the person who shot it was a martial saint?" A thought flashed through Yi Xing's mind. Just now, he had only noticed that the archer's archery skills were superb, but he did not pay attention to the archer's cultivation. If it was a martial sage who shot such a terrifying arrow, it would make more sense. Thinking of martial saints, Yi Xing naturally thought of Zishan Ho. In Qingye Village and Tiansong City, Yi Xing had heard that there was only one martial saint in Zishan County, and that was Zishan Ho. Zishan Ho was the principal of Zishan Academy. When the students were in trouble, it was reasonable for him to save them. "Is it Zishan Ho?" Yi Xing asked in his heart. In the distance, in a valley, stood a black eagle with purple flame-shaped feathers on its forehead. On the back of the black eagle sat a middle-aged man who was not even 40 years old. It was Zishan. After 10 years of hiding my sharpness, it's time to unsheath it. Dark night, this malignant tumor dared to reach into Zishan Academy. Today, I will completely remove you. Zishan softly muttered to himself, then patted the purple flame black eagle below him. Let's go, we will fight together. Yi Xing and the other two rode their demonic horses at a very fast speed, covering 1,000 li in a day. The next day, they arrived at the Savage Beast Ridge of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. The Savage Beast Ridge was not a mountain range, but a very large area in the Green Cloud Mountain Range. It stretched for thousands of li, and there were large numbers of mid- and high-level savage beasts active there. Moreover, the climate there was pleasant, and it was a place where high-level herbs were produced. It was a place where 7th-level grandmasters often went to train. Whoosh, the arrow pierced through the air, and in the blink of an eye, a huge savage beast fell to the ground. Under Yi Xing's arrow, no matter if it was a mid-level savage beast or a low-level savage beast, the result was almost instantaneous. Only a small number of savage beasts with extremely tenacious vitality required Yi Xing to shoot a second arrow. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo did not need to move at all, and the savage beasts had already fallen to the ground a few hundred steps away. This caused the two of them to be secretly shocked. They did not expect Yi Xing's archery to be so powerful, not at all weaker than their own strength. Moreover, killing savage beasts with archery was much easier than rushing up to fight. Killing with one arrow was clean and efficient. After Yi Xing entered the Savage Beast Ridge, he did not let go of any mid-level or high-level savage beasts that he saw. The various martial arts in his super brain were integrated day by day, and the level of his martial arts was getting higher and higher. His attainments in martial arts had also reached an extremely high level, but his archery attainments were still a little lacking. This time, he came to the Savage Beast Ridge to train, first, to find more high-level herbs, and second, to cultivate his archery skills to a higher level. There was no fastest or strongest, only faster and stronger. Yi Xing always believed that he could cultivate his archery skills to a higher level. Not only would it have more variations, but it would also have more power. The Blue Wind Eagle and the masked 8th-level Grandmaster were killed with one arrow, which made him very upset. As time passed, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were even more surprised. Not only was Yi Xing's archery skills unparalleled, but his ability to find herbs was also first class. Some herbs that were difficult for most martial artists to find could not escape Yi Xing's eyes. He found them one by one. There were mid-level herbs and also high-level herbs. Yi Xing divided the high-level herbs into different categories. He kept those for healing, detoxification, or special effects, and ate those for increasing cultivation and strengthening qi and blood. He would cultivate the silver body technique for a period of time every day. In addition, he would trek and hunt in the mountains every day. The high-level herbs he ate every day were quickly refined and absorbed by him. Yi Xing was still a little puzzled about this. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were also very surprised. Yi Xing was like a medicine jar. No matter how much he ate, there seemed to be no adverse effects. Moreover, he could refine and absorb them all. As for other martial artists, they had to take the herbs step by step. After eating one, it would take a long time for the next one to appear. Otherwise, there might be side effects such as excessive qi and blood, inability to absorb, and immunity to medicinal effects. However, Yi Xing had no problems at all. Yi Xing consolidated his cultivation every day. His body was strengthened, and his archery skills were improved. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo also made progress. Yi Xing gave all the mid-level herbs to the two of them for them to consume. However, they did not dare to consume several herbs a day like Yi Xing. They could only consume one herb a day, and one stalk at a time, slowly refining and absorbing it. Sometimes, when they encountered a strong mid-level ominous beast, Yi Xing would deliberately not kill it and let the two of them fight it out. Firstly, it was to train their fighting skills. Secondly, it was to sharpen their bodies in battle, stimulating the potential in their bodies and speeding up the absorption process. Day after day passed. Soon, the three of them had stayed in Savage Beast Ridge for a month. During this month, Yixing did not know how many ominous beasts he had killed or how many high-level herbs he had eaten. He had made significant improvements in all aspects. As his archery skills were integrated with the martial arts in his superbrain, as well as constant practice, Yixing had successfully hunted many high-level ominous beasts that were equivalent to LV8 Grandmasters. His silver body technique had also been cultivated to perfection by a large number of herbs. His cultivation had also consolidated to the peak of LV6. Chapter 111. Senior Brother Yi, many martial Dao masters have come to the desolate ridge to train. We've met a few groups of martial artists in the past 2 days. They're all in the 7th level of the martial Dao, so they must be students from other academies. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo said in surprise. They had also gained a lot in the past month. They had reached the peak of the 6th level of the martial Dao body refining technique. In the distance, they saw another group of martial artists. They were around 18 or 19 years old, about the same age as the older students of Zishan Academy. They were all in the 7th level of the martial Dao, so they should be students from other academies. Zishan County was not the only county in the Starfall Kingdom. There were also academies in other counties that gathered the younger generation of the various counties. Yixing also noticed these students. Since the day before yesterday, they had met 2 or 3 groups every day. Some groups had 3 people, some had 4 people. This was already the 6th group. Moreover, the 6 groups they met were all heading in the same direction. In the past 2 days, Yixing and the other 2 had also been heading in this direction. They wanted to know why these martial artists were coming here. However, they were hunting fierce beasts and looking for herbs, so they were slower than the other groups. Let's look ahead. Yixing pointed at the mountain in front of them. Not long after, the 3 of them had already climbed the mountain. Yixing looked into the distance and saw the 5 groups he had seen 2 days ago in a valley about 10 miles away. The 6th group was also heading in the same direction. In the valley, what attracted Yixing's attention was a fruit tree with some shiny silver fruits that looked like twinkling stars. It's the silver star fruit. Yixing's eyes suddenly lit up. The silver star fruit was an upper-grade herb that could increase one's cultivation. It could be said to be the top upper-grade herb and was much more valuable than other upper-grade herbs. It was very useful for breaking through the 7th or 8th level of the martial Dao realm. It was also useful for breaking through the 9th level of the martial Dao realm, but the effect was very low. No wonder so many martial Dao masters rushed to this valley. It turned out that there was a silver star fruit tree with silver star fruits. Moreover, the silver star fruits were about to ripen. Yixing counted. There were a total of 18 silver star fruits on the silver star tree. I was just thinking about how to quickly break through to the 7th stage of the martial path. This silver star fruit is the best treasure for me. Since I've encountered it, I have to get 2. Yixing thought to himself. 1 silver star fruit might not be enough. 2 silver star fruits would definitely help him break through to the 7th stage of the martial path. In the valley, the martial artists were a little far from the silver star fruit tree, dozens of meters away. They didn't dare to approach. Below the silver star fruit tree, there was a giant ring-shaped snake as thick as an adult's waist. It was a high-level dire beast. This giant ringed snake was called the 100-ringed snake. An adult 100-ringed snake was equivalent to a LV8 peak supreme power realm. It was very terrifying. Obviously, this 100-ringed snake regarded this silver star tree as its treasure. It wanted to use the 18 silver star trees on the tree to raise its level to another level and become a top advanced dire beast. Although the silver star fruit didn't have much of an effect on breaking through from the 8th heaven to the 9th heaven, eating 18 of them in one go was still very effective. If this 100-ringed snake really ate them, there should be a 50% to 60% chance of breaking through again. However, the martial artists surrounding the valley obviously didn't want to see this result. However, the martial artists in the valley were also very wary of the 100-ringed snake. After all, this was a dire beast comparable to a LV8 peak supreme power realm. The martial artists present were all LV7 martial masters, and their cultivation ranged from early LV7 peak. If it was a one-on-one battle, any of the martial artists present would find it difficult to withstand the 100-ringed snake's attacks for more than 10 breaths. However, they had the numbers advantage, so they had the courage to fight with the 100-ringed snake for the silver star fruits. There were quite a few students from the academy who knew about this silver star fruit tree. They had calculated the time when it was about to ripen and rushed over. In the end, they didn't expect that the 100-ringed snake would take the lead and occupy the silver star fruit tree. Not long after, Yixing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo also arrived in the valley. The sixth team had arrived a moment before them. There were a total of 7 academy students in the valley. Other than Yixing's team, the other 6 teams were all martial Dao masters. Yixing's arrival immediately made some people unhappy. A martial Dao master snorted coldly, "A LV6 martial artist dares to come here. Are you courting death?" Yixing was not angry. He smiled slightly and said, "We are students of the Zishan Academy. We are willing to help deal with the 100-ringed snake and seek an opportunity to break through to the LV7 martial Dao." Zishan Academy? That's the trashiest academy? There isn't even a LV9 student in the entire academy? There should be only one Zishan Academy in the Luoxing Kingdom. Even LV8 students are very rare. I heard that Zishan Ho is a cripple. The Zishan Academy is also the trashiest academy in the Luoxing Kingdom. The students are really weak. They are all LV6 martial Dao masters. The students of the other academies suddenly started discussing. There were many counties in the Luoxing Kingdom. It was reasonable to say that the students of the other academies should not know about Zishan Ho. However, these students came from the surrounding counties of the Zishan County. Therefore, they had heard about Zishan Ho. As for the fact that Zishan Ho was a cripple, it was impossible to spread within the Zishan County. Yixing and the others did not know whether Zishan Ho was a cripple or not. However, the 3 of them could not help but feel angry when their academy's principal was ridiculed. Yixing did not care about the ridicule of the students. Yixing said indifferently, "I want 3 silver star fruits on the tree." Originally, Yixing only wanted 2 silver star fruits. However, he changed his mind and wanted 3. Who asked these people to make him angry? Now that he was angry, there would definitely be consequences. There were a total of 18 silver star fruits. Including Yixing's group, there were a total of 7 silver star fruits. Even if they were to be divided equally, it was impossible for each team to get 3 silver star fruits. Furthermore, these martial Dao masters did not even include Yixing's group in the distribution of the silver star fruits. There were 6 teams, so 3 silver star fruits for each team was just right. You must have been kicked in the head by a donkey. You want 3 silver star fruits? Let me tell you, you don't even have one. Hurry up and get lost. With your cultivation, when the 100-ring snake starts fighting, it will eat you 1 bite at a time. The martial Dao master who spoke earlier said disdainfully. Although his words were unpleasant and he looked down on Yixing's group, he did not have any bad intentions. He did not pull Yixing's group into the fight and use them as cannon fodder to deal with the 100-ring snake. Yixing did not mind the martial Dao master's contempt. However, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were indignant. Wu Yuan shouted, "Looking at your age, you should be senior students in the academy. Let me tell you, senior brother Yixing is the first in our Purple Mountain Academy's freshman assessment. He can easily deal with any of you." Ma Bo also added, "That's right. You dare to look down on senior brother Yixing? Why don't you take a piss and look at your own reflection? Once senior brother Yi makes a move, you won't be able to tell north from south." The martial Dao masters were furious. They looked down on Yixing's group of 3 who were in the 6th stage of the martial Dao. They felt that it was right and proper. Now that they were being looked down on by someone in the 6th stage of the martial Dao, they were all furious. First in the freshman assessment? So powerful. An early stage 7th stage martial Dao master walked out and said sarcastically, Come. I want to see how you, the first in the freshman of the Purple Mountain Academy, will beat me. If you can beat me, I'll give you a silver star fruit later. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xing's figure flashed and appeared in front of him. So fast. The early stage 7th stage martial Dao master was shocked and immediately unsheathed the sword in his hand. However, the sword was only halfway out when it was slapped back by Yi Xing. Then he felt a sharp pain in his wrist. The scabbard in his hand loosened and fell out of his hand. Then, with a dazzling cold light, the sword was out of the scabbard by 3 inches and pressed against the man's throat. At this moment, the martial Dao master only felt a sharp breath coming from his throat. It was as if Yi Xing could cut his throat with a slight movement. His eyes were filled with horror. He exclaimed, "What do you want?" The other 2 7th-stage martial Dao masters in his team were also shocked. They shouted, "Stop!" Yi Xing smiled and put away the sword. He threw it to the other party and said, "Do I have the right to take 3 silver star fruits?" The early stage 7th stage martial Dao master was frightened and nodded repeatedly. However, even if he agreed, there were others who disagreed. A martial Dao master at the peak of 7th stage walked out and said, "You are indeed strong and can be given 1 silver star fruit. However, 3 silver star fruits are not enough. Unless you can take a blow from me, Chu Jingnan, and not retreat." This was a student from another academy. Among the 6 teams, only 2 had martial Dao masters at the peak of 7th stage. If Yi Xing really had the strength of a martial Dao master at the peak of 7th stage, it would not be too much to ask for 3 silver star fruits. The distribution of silver star fruits depended on one's strength. The 6 teams had different strengths, so the distribution could not be balanced. The 2 teams with martial Dao masters at the peak of 7th stage would definitely have an advantage in the distribution. If Yi Xing also had this strength, he would naturally have an advantage in the distribution. Yi Xing nodded. "Okay, I'll take a blow from you." All the martial Dao masters' eyes were focused on Yi Xing. They did not expect Yi Xing to really agree to Chu Jingnan's request. Even among the 2 martial Dao masters at the peak of 7th stage, Chu Jingnan's strength was stronger. Therefore, he was the strongest among all the martial Dao masters present. On the other hand, Yi Xing was only a martial Dao master at the peak of 6th stage. There was a huge gap between him and a martial Dao master at the peak of 6th stage. It was already very difficult to cross this gap and defeat a martial Dao master at the early stage of 7th stage. If he could take a blow from Chu Jingnan, it would be even more unbelievable. At the scene, only Wu Yuan and Ma Bo had an excited smile on their faces. Yi Xing had defeated Xianxia, who was at the peak of the 7th stage, when he was only at the late stage of the 6th stage. Chu Jingnan's cultivation was only comparable to Xianxia's, but Yi Xing's cultivation had consolidated to the peak of 6th stage. Moreover, he had also perfected the silver body technique, an upper-class body refining technique, and his strength had improved greatly. With the perfected silver body technique, he could defeat any martial Dao master at the peak of 7th stage even if he used his physical body to oppress his opponent. Overlapping wave palm. Chu Jingnan shouted in a clean and nimble manner. He slapped his palm toward Yi Xing. Chapter 112. Chu Jingnan's attainments in the stacking wave palm were very high and were not inferior to Xianxia's. His palm contained at least 7 layers of internal force. One layer after another, it was like waves. When all the power erupted, the power was extremely terrifying. All the martial Dao masters present were fearful of Chu Jingnan's palm. Any one of them would have to retreat in the face of Chu Jingnan's palm and would not dare to face it head-on. Even Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were surprised. The momentum of Chu Jingnan's attack was even stronger than that of Xianxia's. Only Yi Xing looked normal. A faint smile hung at the corner of his mouth as he pushed his palm forward. Yes, it was a push, not a slap. It was as if there was a stone tablet in front of him, and Yi Xing reached out to push it down. Low-grade martial arts technique, great tablet hand. In the eyes of others, this palm seemed ordinary and there was nothing special about it. However, in Chu Jingnan's eyes, it was a magical technique. He saw Yi Xing's palm grow larger in an instant. It was as if heaven and earth were pressing down on him, shattering his momentum in an instant. Bang! In the next moment, The two palms collided. The terrifying impact of power made an explosive sound. Dong 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 dong. Chu Jingnan's expression changed drastically. He felt a terrifying force pushing him and his body retreated uncontrollably for a total of 9 steps. There were 9 deep footprints on the ground. The deepest one was more than an inch deep in the ground. It was obvious how heavy the force was. Chu Jingnan was actually pushed back 9 steps by Yixing. This shocked all the martial Dao masters. What shocked them even more was that Yixing did not retreat half a step, as if his legs were rooted to the ground. His body was like a mountain and did not move at all. The outcome of the battle between the two palms was obvious. It was the first time that the martial Dao masters present had seen a LV6 martial Dao master at the peak of LV7 martial Dao master retreating with one palm. They were stunned and could not help but soften their eyes in disbelief. Since Wu Yuan and Ma Bo had witnessed Yixing defeating Xiong Qixing with their own eyes, their eyes were filled with astonishment. Yixing had expended a lot of energy to defeat Xiong Qixing, but now, he was able to force Chu Jingnan to retreat 9 steps with a single palm strike. It was clear that his strength had increased by a large margin. Chu Jingnan steadied himself after taking 9 steps back. He looked shocked and said, "Are you really at the 6th level of the martial path?" Chu Jingnan had heard that there was a cultivation technique that could hide one's cultivation level among the auxiliary martial arts. This kind of cultivation technique was very rare. Chu Jingnan suspected that Yixing had hidden his cultivation level. Otherwise, how could he have been defeated by a LV6 martial artist when he was at the peak of LV7? Yixing nodded. "I'm still 1 step away from the 7th level. This is the time when I need the silver star fruit." Chu Jingnan's expression changed from shock to admiration. He said, "What I admire the most in my life are martial arts geniuses who can challenge people at a higher level. In the past, the person I admired the most was my cousin Chu Jingyue. She was able to defeat someone at the peak of LV7 martial Dao master when she was at the early stage of LV7 martial Dao master. Now, I admire you the most. I'm Chu Jingnan from the East Lake Academy. May I know your name?" Yixing from the Purple Mountain Academy. Yixing reported his name and smiled. "Now, am I qualified to get 3 silver star fruits?" Chu Jingnan said, "Yes, absolutely. I believe that my friends from other academies have no objections." After that, Chu Jingnan glanced at the martial Dao masters. They all shook their heads, indicating that they had no objections. Chu Jingnan was the most powerful among them. Even Chu Jingnan was pushed back by Yixing's palm strike. Who would dare to say anything? The most powerful team now was Yixing's team. It was not unreasonable for Yixing to want 3 silver star fruits. Given Yixing's strength, he could shoot these people from a distance and take all the silver star fruits for himself. However, Yixing obviously could not do such a thing. He did not even think about it. A gentleman loved money, but he had a way of obtaining it. Yixing also had his own way of obtaining the silver star fruits. Before obtaining the silver star fruits, he had to get rid of the 100-ringed snake. Given Yixing's strength, his efforts were enough to obtain 3 silver star fruits in return. Yixing glanced at the 100-ringed snake, which was coiled under the silver star fruit tree and staring coldly at everyone. He said, "The silver star fruits should be ripe soon. Let's get rid of it first." Chu Jingnan frowned and said, "This beast is not easy to deal with. It is now entangled under the silver star fruit tree and is fully focused on defense. If we take the initiative to attack it, it will be very difficult to kill it. Moreover, it is easy to destroy the silver star fruits on the tree in the process of fighting. It is really difficult to deal with." The martial Dao masters had already thought of various ways to lure the 100-ringed snake out. They attacked with sword auras, saber auras, and arrows. However, without exception, all the attacks were blocked by the 100-ringed snake's huge tail. The saber auras and sword auras could not hurt its tough scales. The arrows could not hit its body. There was almost no way to deal with it. Yixing said confidently, "Let me try. I don't believe that it won't come out." While speaking, Yixing took out the dragon tendon bow and took out a black arrow. He said, "If it coils under the tree and doesn't move, I will directly shoot it to death." If it comes out to attack me, everyone will swarm up and besiege it to death. Don't give it a chance to go back and destroy the silver star fruits. Although they had used this method before and the arrows were blocked by the 100-ringed snake's huge tail, everyone was still very confident in Yixing's strength. If the arrow shot was fast enough and powerful enough, it could pose a great threat to the 100-ringed snake. They did not believe that the 100-ringed snake would not come out. Otherwise, it would be used as a target and shot to death. Let's retreat a little further and try to keep it as far away from the silver star fruit tree as possible, Yixing said as he turned and walked into the distance. Yixing walked to the edge of the valley. He was nearly 400 steps away from the silver star fruit tree before he stopped. As for the others, they stopped 300 steps away from the silver star fruit tree. If the 100-ringed snake attacked Yixing, they would surround and kill it here. They would not allow the 100-ringed snake to approach Yixing, nor would they allow it to return. Hiss! The 100-ringed snake coldly stared at Yixing. It knew that these people were going to attack it again, and Yixing, who was armed with a bow and arrow, was its number one threat. "Get ready, I'm going to shoot!" Yixing shouted. Whoosh! In the next moment, the black arrow left the bowstring, emitting a loud sound. The arrow was like a stream of light and its trajectory was like a spiral. A trace of fear appeared in the 100-ringed snake's cold eyes. This arrow was different from the arrow attacks it had faced before. It made it feel threatened. Pow! With a long hiss, the 100-ringed snake's giant tail lashed out. It was like a whip striking the air. In an instant, it swept towards the incoming scarlet arrow. The black arrow was fused with the power of the wind. Its trajectory was mysterious. The 100-ringed snake's giant tail lashed out at empty air. The arrow bypassed the giant tail and instantly shot into the 100-ringed snake's body. The 100-ringed snake's hard scales were unable to block the arrow's penetration. Nearly half of the black arrow instantly sank into its body. The intense pain caused the 100-ringed snake's giant body to tremble. Whoosh! At this time, the second black arrow had already been shot out. The 100-ringed snake was furious. With a long hiss, it unfurled its body and rushed towards Yixing. If it did not fight back, it would become a target for Yixing to shoot it to death. The 100-ringed snake was unable to block this arrow. The trajectory of the arrow was too difficult to judge. Another arrow sank nearly half of its body into the 100-ringed snake's body. The 100-ringed snake let out a long hiss. Its giant body twisted on the ground. Its speed was extremely fast. It was as if it was riding the wind. In the blink of an eye, it was dozens of meters away. However, no matter how fast it was not faster than Yixing's bow and arrow. When the 100-ringed snake was 100 steps away from the silver star tree, Yixing immediately released 3 arrows and used his ultimate killing move. An arrow shot out. The 100-ringed snake's head was nimble and easy to dodge. If it hit its body, it would not cause a fatal threat to the 100-ringed snake. If 3 arrows were released at the same time, it would be difficult for the 100-ringed snake to avoid hitting its vital points. Once the vital points were hit, the 100-ringed snake might be shot to death by Yixing. One arrow was hit by the 100-ringed snake's chi arrow. Another arrow was dodged by the 100-ringed snake's body. However, there was still one arrow that suddenly changed direction after being released. It instantly shot into the 100-ringed snake's 7 inches from the back. Most of it sank into its body. Being attacked in its vital points, the 100-ringed snake's body immediately trembled. It was severely injured. The 100-ringed snake hissed angrily. Its body was huge and its skin was thick. Even if its vital points were attacked, it would be difficult to kill it immediately. It continued to rush towards Yixing. At this time, the martial Dao masters next to him swarmed forward. Sword light, saber light, and spear light were released at the same time. All of them greeted the 100-ringed snake. If the 100-ringed snake was not injured, even if there were about 20 martial Dao masters joining forces, it would be difficult to deal with it for a while. However, it was now seriously injured. How could it withstand the siege of so many martial Dao masters? In addition, Yixing was still shooting arrows from a distance. It was impossible for the 100-ringed snake to guard against and hide. Soon, it turned into a corpse, lying straight on the ground. This reminded Yi Xing of fighting a boss in the game. With both melee and long-range attacks, the boss would be besieged until it couldn't find its way north. Despite having powerful strength, it would be besieged to death. This 100-ring snake was similar. Your archery skills are so powerful that you can even injure the 100-ringed snake. After the 100-ringed snake died, Chu Jingnan looked at Yi Xing and said in a shocked voice. Yi Xing was only a 6th-level martial artist, but the arrow he shot could injure the 100-ringed snake, which was equivalent to an 8th-level grandmaster. This was really surprising. Yi Xing smiled faintly. Actually, archery is my forte. Everyone was speechless. According to Yi Xing's words, his own strength seemed to be his shortcoming. If his shortcoming could allow him to challenge someone of a higher level, how could he let others live? Chapter 113. Arrogant. This 8th-level grandmaster's demeanor and tone were extremely arrogant. The faces of the martial Dao masters were instantly filled with anger. Yi Xing also narrowed his eyes. They had worked together to get rid of the 100-ring snake under the silver star fruit tree. It was time to harvest the fruit, but this person wanted them to get lost and monopolize the silver star fruit. Who could tolerate this? So what if he was an 8th-level grandmaster? This was not a matter of cultivation at all, but of morality. For example, Yi Xing also had the strength to drive other martial Dao masters away, but he did not do so. However, this 8th-level grandmaster did so. Chu Jingnan said angrily, "Why? We came here first and we killed the 100-ring snake. Do you want to monopolize the fruit just because you have a higher cultivation?" The peak level 8 martial scholar chuckled and said, "Why should I? Because we are students of Ziyang Academy. Get lost." Yi Xing did not know where Ziyang Academy was and had never heard of it. He did not think that it was a big deal to be a student of Ziyang Academy. However, the expressions of Chu Jingnan and the others changed when they heard this. Obviously, Ziyang Academy was not ordinary. Although Chu Jingnan and the others were still angry, their momentum suddenly weakened a lot. Yi Xing said, "So what if you are students of Ziyang Academy? Can you be shameless and snatch other people's treasures?" Chu Jingnan and the others were shocked by Yi Xing's words. Chu Jingnan hurriedly whispered, "Brother Yi, don't you know Ziyang Academy? It is one of the 3 strongest academies in Luoxing Kingdom. The teachers in the academy are all martial sages and the students are geniuses. We can't afford to offend them." Chu Jingnan's reminder was too late. Yi Xing's words made the 4 students of Ziyang Academy angry. They swept their cold gazes at Yi Xing. The 8th-level grandmaster said, "How dare an ant of the 6th level of the martial Dao realm speak to our Ziyang Academy? Where did an ant like you come from? Are you tired of living?" Yi Xing wanted to say that it was none of his business, but Chu Jingnan had already said, "This is brother Yi Xing from Zishan Academy. He probably hasn't heard of Ziyang Academy. How should I address you, friend? Don't be angry, don't be angry." As he spoke, Chu Jingnan rubbed his hands and continued, "Look, there are so many of us. We arrived here first and put in so much effort to kill this 100-ring snake. We should get something in return after putting in so much effort. There are 18 silver star fruits on this tree. Ziyang College can have half of them and the other 9 will be divided among the 7 colleges. What do you think? Get lost." The pinnacle 8th-level martial scholar glared at him and bellowed, "You can either scram or stay here to die." As he spoke, he chuckled and pointed his index finger at Yi Xing and the others, saying, "Are you very unconvinced? I'm Xianxia Temple from Ziyang Academy. If you're not convinced, feel free to beat me." The temple of Xianxia's expression was arrogant, and the only thing missing was the words, "Heavenly King" written on his face. Looking at the savagery revealed in his smile, if there really was someone who dared to oppose him, he would definitely kill and take that person's life. "All right, senior brother Xianxia Temple, don't scare these poor souls." Another 8th-level grandmaster from Ziyang Academy spoke and waved his hand at Yi Xing and the others, saying, "You can go now. Be more careful in the future." Chu Jingnan was reluctant to part with the silver star fruits and was still a little hesitant. Most of the martial Dao masters shook their heads and sighed before turning to leave. Let's go. Let's just pretend that we didn't meet and come here for nothing. Seeing that most of the people had retreated, Chu Jingnan also knew that it was difficult for him to act alone. He said to Yixing, "Sai? Forget it, let's not fight with them. Yixing, let's go." Wait. Xianxia Temple reached out and stopped them. He stared fiercely at Yixing and said, "You can all leave safely, but he can't. Just now, he insulted Ziyang Academy. He has to take a slap in the face before he can leave." Another 8th level Grandmaster said, "Senior brother Xianxia Temple is right. You should slap yourself. Who told you to spout nonsense?" Yixing sneered in his heart. This Xianxia Temple was simply courting death. However, a peak 8th level Grandmaster was right in front of him. Yixing didn't dare to underestimate him. He only sneered in his heart and didn't show it on his face. After all, Yixing couldn't compete with an 8th level Grandmaster if he didn't use a bow and arrow. At such a close distance, a bow and arrow were useless. Yixing had a dangerous smile on his face and said, "I spoke carelessly just now. I'm really sorry. Senior brother Zhen, I'm willing to give you a gift. Please don't be angry." Xianxia Temple naturally wouldn't refuse a gift from someone. He said, "What is it? If it can satisfy me, I won't slap you." Yixing said, "This thing is very fast. I can't take it out when I'm close enough. I have to walk further away." It was very fast. What was it that couldn't be taken out when he was close enough? Xianxia Temple was interested when he heard this. He said, "Go ahead and take it out. But don't think about running away. With your cultivation, I can catch up to you in 3 steps. I won't run," Yixing said and turned to walk towards the open area at the entrance of the valley. He used the flying swan technique. 1 step was more than 10 feet, and 3 steps were more than 100 meters away. Chu Jingnan was also very puzzled. What gift did Yixing want to give? Seeing Yixing walk further and further away, those who were quick-witted suddenly thought of a possibility. Their hearts skipped a beat and their faces changed. Seeing Yixing walk 100 meters away, Xianxia Temple shouted, "Enough! How much further do you want to go? If you go any further, I won't be able to see it clearly when you take it out." Yixing took another step, then turned around and said with a smile, "I really want to die. My gift is fast and sharp. It's quiet like a stick, but it's moving like a beam of light. It can even take a person's life. Guess what it is?" As he spoke, Yixing took down the dragon tendon bow. At the same time, he took out 3 black edge arrows. Seeing this, Chu Jingnan and the others hurriedly retreated to the sides. They had seen Yixing's archery skills before. Xianxia Temple's reaction wasn't fast. It wasn't until Yixing took out the bow and knocked an arrow that he realized that Yixing wanted to give him an arrow. No. 1 bow and 3 arrows. He was giving him 3 arrows. Xianxia Temple was furious. A 6th-stage martial Dao ant was actually pointing an arrow at him. He immediately roared, "You're courting death." Due to the anger in his heart, Xianxia Temple had forgotten that Yixing hadn't shouted Xianxia Temple's name just now, but that he really wanted to die. While Xianxia Temple was furious, the other 3 students of the Ziyang Academy were also furious. They hadn't expected that Yixing's gift would be like this. They felt like they had been played like monkeys. Xianxia Temple roared and leaped up like a great rock, pouncing towards Yixing. Even though he could use his inner strength to leave his body, he was more than 100 meters away from Yixing. He had to be at least 30 meters away from Yixing for his inner strength to cause effective damage to Yixing. Seeing Xianxia Temple leap several meters into the air, Yixing chuckled inwardly. Xianxia Temple was obviously treating him like an ant and didn't pay any attention to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have leaped into the air under the threat of the arrow. He was practically a target. If you really want to die, I'll give you the arrow. Whether or not you can receive it will depend on your ability. Bush. As Yixing spoke, the arrow had already left the bowstring and pierced through the air. After the 3 black arrows left the bowstring, their trajectories immediately twisted. They went in different directions, but they had the same speed as cold light and a terrifying force that could be judged from the sound of them piercing through the air. Xianxia Temple immediately felt a fatal threat the moment Yi Xing's arrow left the bowstring. His body seemed to have been locked onto by the twisted arrow. This caused Xianxia Temple's expression to change greatly. He had never taken Yi Xing, a 6th-rank martial artist, seriously. He had always treated Yi Xing as an ant. He never expected Yi Xing to be able to pose a fatal threat to him. Unfortunately, by the time he understood, he was already on the brink of death. It was already too late. He couldn't grasp the trajectories of the 3 arrows at all, and couldn't determine from which angle they would attack from. The only thing he could do was to defend from all sides. Whoosh! Xianxia Temple's sword was unsheathed. A cold light flashed and formed a sword screen around him, enveloping him. The sword light was like a screen, and the sword chi overlapped one another. This was a defensive sword technique. Xianxia Temple was able to reach the peak of 8th-rank Grandmaster before the age of 20. He was also a genius and was very strong. Ding, ding, ding. 3 crisp sounds rang out almost at the same time. This meant that his sword had collided with the 3 arrows. However, the collision didn't necessarily mean that he had defended. Only one of the black arrows was split into 2 and fell to the ground. Although the trajectories of the other 2 arrows were slightly affected, they still hit his body. A sharp pain came from his chest and back at the same time. Fortunately, because the trajectories were slightly off, they didn't hit any vital parts. These 2 arrows wouldn't take his life. However, the injuries from these 2 arrows were enough to take his life. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Yi Xing had shot another arrow. At the same time, Yi Xing's voice rang out. "This arrow is the real gift for you." Yi Xing drew the dragon tendon bow into a full moon and shot this arrow. It flew straight and was incomparably fast. In a flash, it was already in front of Xianxia Temple. Xianxia Temple finally looked terrified. He roared, "Don't!" At the same time, he swung the sword in his hand, wanting to split the arrow apart. However, the arrow wound on his body slowed his movements by a fraction. His arrow struck empty air, and a bloody hole instantly appeared in his throat. An arrow through the throat. Xianxia Temple's eyes were filled with disbelief. His corpse fell to the ground. His body struggled for a while before it stopped moving. He was already dead. "You actually dared to kill senior brother Xianxia Temple. How dare you?" Another 8th-level Grandmaster from Ziyang School pointed at Yi Xing and shouted fiercely. The other 2 7th-level Grandmasters were also red in the face and neck. They looked at Yi Xing angrily, but there was fear in their angry eyes. Chu Jingnan and the others were also dumbfounded from afar. They never expected Yi Xing to be able to kill Xianxia Temple. He actually dared to shoot Xianxia Temple. Yi Xing looked coldly at the other 8th-level Grandmaster from Ziyang School and said, "You also want a gift?" The 8th-level Grandmaster was shocked and subconsciously took a step back. Yi Xing shouted, "If you don't want it, scram." Chapter 114. Just you wait, Ziyang College won't let you off. The level 8 martial scholar said fiercely. He didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly left. The corpse of Xianxia Temple was carried away by 2 level 7 students of Ziyang College. Chu Jingnan and the others only came up after the students of Ziyang College had left. Chu Jingnan said, "Brother Yi Xing, you're in trouble." "Big trouble." The rest of the people nodded in agreement. Yi Xing looked calm and said, "I'm a student of Zishan College. What can they do to me? Do they dare to go to Zishan College and ask for me?" Chu Jingnan said, "Zishan College is different from ordinary colleges. In ordinary colleges, only the vice principal and above are martial saints. In Ziyang College, even the teachers are martial saints. But in Zishan College, even the vice principal is not a martial saint. The only martial saint in Zishan College is Zishan Ho. I heard that he's a cripple and doesn't care about anything. Who can stop him?" Yi Xing smiled and said, "Zishan County is Zishan Ho's territory after all. He's a marquis who was conferred the title by the monarch. Even if the teachers of Ziyang College are martial saints, they can't be compared to Zishan Ho. How can Zishan Ho allow others to capture people in Zishan College? Life and death are fated, but the spirit of a martial artist lives forever in one's heart. Yi Xing didn't care about Xianxia Temple. He changed the topic and said, "In Zishan County, I've never heard of anything bad about Zishan Ho. Brother Chu, why do you say that Zishan Ho is a cripple?" Chu Jingnan touched his head and said, "Actually, I don't know. I only heard that Zishan Ho's legs are paralyzed." "How can rumors be true?" Yi Xing smiled indifferently. Although he hadn't seen Zishan Ho, he had a good impression of him. Before he entered the Blue Cloud Mountains, he was chased by the masked men on blue winged eagles. It was very likely that Zishan Ho had saved him. If it really was Zishan Ho, then Zishan Ho was not only a martial saint, but also a martial saint with godly archery skills. Yi Xing did not believe that Zishan Ho was a cripple. At this moment, a strong fragrance wafted over. When the fragrance entered his nose, it shook his spirit. It was as if his soul had been sublimated. A medicinal herb that could achieve such an effect was definitely not ordinary. Everyone's eyes lit up. The silver star fruit had matured. "Let's go. We can pick the fruits now." "Ah." Yi Xing was in a good mood and laughed loudly. The ripening of the silver star fruit meant that his cultivation was about to break through LV7 and become a martial Dao master. He remembered that when he had just arrived at the Star Continent, he had heard the mage Xiaoqing talk about martial arts. According to Xiaoqing, a martial arts master was already an extremely superior figure. And now, he was about to become a martial Dao master. Of course, he was happy. Chu Jingnan and the others were also very happy, but they did not feel carefree. Instead, they felt a little embarrassed. Chu Jingnan said, "Yi Xing, originally, all the silver star fruits would have been snatched by the students of Ziyang College. We would not have gotten a single one. Now that you have killed Temple Xianxiang and offended Zishan College, you naturally have to bear the consequences of killing Temple Xianxiang. These silver star fruits should all belong to you. However, we also need the silver star fruits. How about this? The 6 colleges will each get one and the remaining 12 will all belong to you. Is that okay?" Thinking that these silver star fruits were obtained by Yi Xing at the risk of Ziyang College's revenge, Chu Jingnan and the others felt very embarrassed to take even one. However, they had come to Green Cloud Mountains for the Savage Beast Ridge for the silver star fruits. They really wanted them. Although Yi Xing had killed Temple Xianxiang, he did not think that all the silver star fruits should belong to him. This was basically no different from Temple Xianxiang. He was just borrowing Temple Xianxiang's hand to get the silver star fruits. Yi Xing would not do such a thing. Of course, Chu Jingnan was right. He had taken a great risk by killing Temple Xianxiang. Naturally, he had to obtain more benefits. This was also a matter of course. Yi Xing thought for a while and said, "There are so many of you. How about this? I will take 6. As for the remaining 12, each of your teams will get 2. As for the distribution among your teams, it's up to you. 2 is better than 1. Chu Jingnan and the others were overjoyed. They never expected Yi Xing to be so open-minded. He was the complete opposite of Temple Xianxiang. Temple Xianxiang only thought about himself and never cared about the lives of others. However, Yi Xing never only thought about himself. Most of the time, he thought about others. "Brother Yi Xing, thank you so much." Chu Jingnan was pleasantly surprised. He said, "I, Chu Jing, rarely admire someone so much. But I admire you. First, I admire your strength. Second, I admire your character. Either way, it's rare and admirable. To be honest, if I were you, I would definitely not be willing to give away so many silver star fruits." The others also expressed their gratitude. Yi Xing shrugged. As he plucked the silver star fruits, he said, "Although the silver star fruit is good, it can only be used to improve one's cultivation once. I used it to break through to the 7th level, but I can't use it to break through to the 8th level in the future. What's the use of having more? It's fate that we met in the Mount Qingyun. Why should I be so stingy?" Very soon, each team had a representative who plucked 2 silver star fruits. With the silver star fruits in hand, there was no need for the teams to stay together. They went their separate ways. "Brother Yi Xing, if you come to the East Lake County in the future, Feel free to come to the East Lake Academy and look for me, Chu Jingnan. Chu Jingnan said to Yi Xing as he left. When he was far away, he turned back and shouted, "Perhaps you don't have to go to the East Lake Academy to look for me. We'll have a chance to meet again. Cultivate well. Maybe we can become disciples of the Falling Star sect together." Falling Star sect? Yi Xing asked Wu Yuan and Ma Bo, "Why is the Falling Star sect so similar to the Falling Star country? Is there any relationship between them?" The two looked at Yi Xing, speechless. Wu Yuan said, "The Falling Star country was founded by the Falling Star sect. It's the strongest force in the Falling Star country. It's a big level higher than all the other academies. I heard that there are many martial sages in the Falling Star country." Ma Bo nodded. They didn't know much about but they were much better than Yi Xing. Yi Xing nodded and said, "I understand. Just like the Zishan Academy gathers all the geniuses in the Zishan Prefecture and selects geniuses from all the cities, the Falling Star sect gathers all the geniuses in the Falling Star country and selects geniuses from all the cities. If you perform well in the academy, you should have a chance to become a disciple of the Falling Star sect." Yi Xing's eyes lit up. His goal was to become a martial sage. However, the Zishan Academy didn't even have a teacher who was a martial sage, and the students weren't even 9th level grandmasters. He knew that it was impossible for him to become a martial sage in the Zishan Academy. Now, he finally understood that the Falling Star sect was his home. There were many martial sages in the Falling Star sect. Only there could he become a martial sage, achieve his goal, and become a peerless expert. Wu Yuan said, "That's right. The Falling Star sect selects disciples in the same year as the academy. It happens once every 3 years. However, it's much more difficult to become a disciple of the Falling Star sect than a student of the academy." Yi Xing asked, "In the same year? Then the Falling Star sect should be recruiting disciples soon. More than half a year has passed this year." Wu Yuan said, "I don't know the exact time, but I heard that the Zishan Academy is lagging behind the other academies. Very few students can enter the Falling Star sect. Only a few students can enter each time. Only the students of the Advanced Genius class have a chance." After learning about the Yi Xing's heart was no longer in the Zishan Academy. Now, what he wanted to do the most was to cultivate and raise his cultivation. Then, when the Falling Star sect recruited disciples, he would be able to stand out from the other geniuses and be selected by the Falling Star sect. Only then would he have a chance of becoming a martial sage within a year. Yi Xing waved his hand. "Let's go. We'll leave this place first." Yi Xing remembered seeing a cave 2 days ago. As they did not kill any ferocious beasts or find any medicinal herbs on the way, the 3 of them arrived at the cave in the evening. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo were in charge of guarding the entrance of the cave. Yi Xing entered the cave and sat down cross-legged. He calmed his mind and took out a silverstar fruit. After consuming it, he began to refine and absorb it to break through to the 7th stage of the martial path. The medicinal power of the silverstar fruit was more than 10 times stronger than all the medicinal herbs Yi Xing had consumed in the past. Not long after it entered his stomach, Yi Xing felt a surge of astral energy crazily absorbing it. Just by feeling this surge of astral energy, Yi Xing knew that 1 silverstar fruit was enough for him to break through to the 7th stage of the martial path. As the silverstar fruit was refined, the internal strength in Yi Xing's body surged more and more. It was as if his body was about to explode. At the same time, the 6 rings of stars in his dantian became incomparably resplendent. The 7th ring was faintly formed. When 80 to 90% of the silverstar fruit's medicinal power was absorbed, the 7th ring finally appeared clearly. Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through. He had taken an extremely important step on the martial path. 7 rings, 7th stage of the martial path. Yi Xing had officially become a martial Dao master. Yi Xing felt the internal strength in his body surge to the extreme. It was as if it was about to explode. The moment his cultivation broke through, the surging internal strength finally appeared. Yi Xing felt all the pores in his body open at this moment. Terrifying internal strength shot out in all directions from his countless pores. It rushed out in all directions, causing the surrounding air to tremble and waves of air to surge. External release of internal strength. This was external release of internal strength. Just now, the internal strength had spread out in all directions, so the power produced wasn't strong. Now, Yixing controlled the internal strength and poured it all into his palm. He slammed his palm against the cave wall in front of him. The cave wall was 3 meters away from Yixing. However, as Yixing slammed his palm, a surge of internal strength left his body and instantly slammed into the cave wall. A clear handprint instantly appeared on the cave wall. It was about an inch deep. If a 6th-stage martial artist received Yixing's palm from 3 meters away, they would definitely be severely injured. Only after becoming a martial sage could one absorb it. Ordinary cultivators were unable to sense or absorb astral yuan qi. They could only slowly absorb the weak astral yuan qi from the void. A strand of astral yuan qi contained more astral yuan qi than 100 strands of astral yuan qi. From this, it could be seen that Yixing was able to absorb astral yuan qi at the 7th stage of the martial path. His cultivation speed was extremely fast. Naturally, it was like a rocket that soared into the sky. At this moment, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo, who were standing at the entrance of the cave, were shocked. Both of them felt as though there was a suction force, like a magnet attracting a piece of iron, was pulling at the inner martial strength and celestial ring astral force in their bodies, causing them to feel as though their inner martial strength and celestial ring astral force were about to leave their bodies. The two of them hurriedly circulated their cultivation methods to prevent the astral yuan qi and inner strength from flowing out of their bodies. However, they could not stop the shock in their hearts. What was going on? This terrifying feeling lasted for a full hour before the two of them felt that they had returned to normal. They looked at each other, their eyes filled with lingering fear. From each other's eyes, the two of them could sense that what had happened just now was related to Yixing. At this moment, in the depths of the cave, Yixing had already stood up. His eyes were filled with joy. In just a short hour, his cultivation had reached the peak of the 7th stage of the early stage of the 7th stage of the martial path. If he had cultivated normally, he might not have been able to achieve this in half a month. This meant that the improvement in his cultivation in this hour was more than half a month of normal cultivation. From this, it could be seen that his cultivation speed in this hour was indeed like sitting on a rocket. If he could maintain this speed, he would be able to reach the peak of the 7th stage in less than a day. Unfortunately, there was a time limit to the astral manifestation and it was not under Yixing's control. When the astral manifestation ended, the super-fast cultivation speed also stopped. Yixing was not a greedy person. In just an hour, his cultivation had reached the peak of the early stage of the 7th stage of the martial path. He was already very satisfied and happy. Moreover, with the breakthrough in his cultivation, he felt that he had taken a big step forward in integrating the various martial arts in his super brain. It seemed that he did not need to reach the 8th stage of the martial path to completely integrate all the martial arts. At that time, his level of martial arts knowledge would be comparable to that of a martial saint. Naturally, he would be able to cultivate martial arts with half the effort and his strength would increase greatly. Zishan Academy. When Yixing's cultivation broke through to the 7th stage of the martial path, Wei Qingxian was also sprinting towards the 7th stage of the martial path. Wei Qingxian was valued by Zishan Ho. She enjoyed special treatment and endless resources. Her aptitude was also good, so naturally, her cultivation speed was very fast. Without the Silvestar fruit, Wei Qingxian used a high-grade star accumulation pill to stabilize her cultivation to the peak of the 6th stage. Naturally, she broke through to the 7th stage of the martial path. The breakthrough process was very simple. Everything happened naturally. The 7th star ring appeared in her dantian. The surging inner strength in her body surged out of her body and she stepped into the 7th stage of the martial path. I've finally become a martial master. I wonder if Yixing is faster or if I'm faster. Wei Qingxian thought happily in her heart. Before she could think about it, Wei Qingshuan's head buzzed, causing her to fall into a deep sleep and fall into a coma. It's here again. This was Wei Qingxuan's last thought before she fainted. Wei Qingxian sensed the stars at the age of 10 and started cultivating. A few years ago, her performance was relatively ordinary. At the age of 14, she broke through to the 4th stage of the martial path and became a true martial artist. When she broke through to the 4th stage of the martial path, Wei Qingxian fainted once. She felt that she had a dream. There were some blurry scenes in the dream that she couldn't remember when she woke up. However, after that, her cultivation became much easier. Soon, she stepped into the 5th stage of the martial path and became a rising star of the Azure Sky City. She and Yixing were known as the twin prides. Now, when she broke through to the 7th stage of the martial path, this situation happened again. Wei Qingxian fainted, but her consciousness was still a little bit clear. Some blurry scenes flashed in her mind. There seemed to be a person in the scene looking at her. However, it was very blurry and she couldn't see clearly. She felt that the person was very familiar. Soon, the person moved. He stood high in the sky and used all kinds of terrifying martial arts. Wei Qingxian seemed to understand something, but she still couldn't see clearly. In the end, all the scenes disappeared and turned into a light that merged into her mind. After an unknown amount of time, Wei Qingxian woke up. That dream again? Wei Qingxian was shocked. She immediately stood up and checked her body. There was no abnormality. The only change was that her cultivation was very stable. She remembered that she had just stepped into the 7th stage of the martial path, but now her cultivation was in the middle stage of the 7th stage. This was exactly the same as when she fainted when she broke through to the 4th stage of the martial path. When she woke up, her cultivation was in the middle stage of the 4th stage of the martial path. Moreover, after a little more than a month, her cultivation broke through to the 5th stage of the martial path. While this surprised her, she also felt a surge of joy. If this was the case, she wasn't far from the 8th stage of the martial path. She was only 14.5 years old now. It seemed that she had a high chance of becoming a martial saint around the age of 17 like the red-clothed girl and Zishanho. Hee, this time Yixing shouldn't be able to beat me. However, Yixing's martial arts attainments are very high and his strength is very strong. Even if his cultivation is not as good as mine, his battle strength may not be inferior to mine. It seems that I have to strengthen my martial arts cultivation. Wei Qingxian thought. She and Yixing had both risen in Celestial Azure City and had a close relationship. However, the two of them also had a secret competition on the martial path. Who is that familiar figure in the dream? Why do I always dream of him? Moreover, the martial arts he used were so strong, as if they could turn the heavens and the earth upside down. I'm afraid that even a martial saint wouldn't have that kind of power. Wei Qingxuan's mind spun. She was filled with curiosity towards everything in the dream. Unfortunately, no matter how hard she thought, she couldn't think of any clues. She couldn't see the person in the dream or the martial arts clearly. However, the martial arts comprehension she obtained was preserved. She felt that her martial arts attainments had increased by a lot. As long as she put it into practice, there would be great progress. On the same day, Yixing and Wei Qingxian both stepped into the 7th stage of the martial path and became martial masters. Similarly, when the two of them broke through to the 7th stage of the martial path, something abnormal happened. However, that abnormal thing only lasted for a short period of time. After that, the days passed as usual. Half a month later, Yixing, Wu Yuan, and Ma Bo returned to the Zishan Academy. After half a month of experience, Yixing's cultivation had already reached the middle of the 7th stage of the martial path. The integration of many martial arts in his mind was also close to perfection. His martial arts attainments had made great progress compared to when he was at the 6th stage of the martial path. The reason why Yixing returned was because the assessment of the advanced class was approaching. He now wholeheartedly wanted to enter the Falling Star sect. However, entering the Falling Star sect was only possible if one performed well in the academy. No matter how outstanding Yixing's performance in the lower class was, he was still a student of the lower class. If the Falling Star sect were to choose a disciple, they wouldn't be able to pick him in a short period of time. Therefore, he needed to prove to others that even among the students of the advanced class, he, Yixing, was ranked at the top. He might even be number one. He wanted to become the most outstanding student of the Zishan Academy. When the Falling Star sect were to choose a disciple, they would naturally choose him. What was considered the most outstanding student? Naturally, it was to participate in the advanced class assessment and compete with the students of the advanced class to determine who was better. Only by comparison could one determine who was better. I didn't complete the 4th chapter yesterday, but I will deliver the 4th chapter today. There isn't much time left for double monthly votes. Please get one more. Chapter 116. Yixing's return with a cultivation of the 7th stage of the martial path shook the entire Indigo Mountain Institute. Even though Yixing's strength was heaven-defying, defeating Xianxia, who was at the peak of the 7th stage of the martial path, shocking everyone, it couldn't hide the fact that he was a 2-star Destiny Realm cultivator. Therefore, everyone believed that Yixing's cultivation would be his shortcoming in the future. It wasn't easy to break through from the 6th stage of the martial path to the 7th stage, but no one expected that Yixing would become a martial Dao master in just 2 months. This news shocked everyone and naturally caused a sensation in the entire Indigo Mountain Institute. Yixing has indeed broken through. I don't know if his cultivation has reached the middle of the 7th stage, but in such a short period of time, it's impossible for him to reach the peak of the 7th stage. He should still be a little weaker than me, hee. Wei Qingxian thought happily when she heard that Yixing had become a martial Dao master. After she fainted, her cultivation had a period of rapid growth. In the past half a month, her cultivation had increased rapidly and had reached the peak of the 7th stage. Compared to other warriors, this kind of cultivation speed was simply shocking. However, her heavenly fate was indeed very high. Moreover, the academy had provided her with sufficient cultivation resources. Coupled with her miraculous dream, such progress was actually very normal. Yixing didn't point out that his cultivation had reached the middle of the 7th stage. In response to everyone's surprise, he explained, I obtained some high-grade herbs in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range and obtained the Silver Star Fruit. That's how I broke through to the 7th stage of the martial path. This sentence naturally spread along with the news that Yixing had become a martial Dao master. Everyone suddenly realized that Yixing had obtained a great opportunity. The high-grade herbs were very precious, especially the Silver Star Fruit, which was almost impossible to find. They attributed Yixing's ability to become a martial Dao master to luck, and the shock in their hearts lessened by a lot. The first thing Yixing did when he returned to the Purple Mountain Academy was to apply to participate in the advanced class competition. Yixing had already defeated Xianxia 2 months ago, proving that he was qualified to compete with the students of the advanced class. Now that his cultivation had reached the 7th stage of the martial path, he was naturally more qualified. However, this was the first time in the history of the Purple Mountain Institute that a new student could participate in the advanced class competition. The institute's teachers did not directly approve of Yixing's participation just because he had the ability, but instead reported it to the 3 vice principals. Yixing was already in the limelight in the Purple Mountain Institute. The 3 vice deans didn't want him to be in the limelight anymore and wanted to reject Yixing's application. However, Xianxia, who had never cared about the matters of the academy, received the news and issued an order. Let Yixing participate in the advanced class competition. This time, I, Ho, will personally oversee the competition. The 3 vice principals looked at each other in dismay. Xianxia actually wanted to personally oversee the competition this time, and Xianxia had never interfered with the previous 3 advanced class competitions. Although they didn't understand, they didn't dare to disobey Xianxia's orders. Yixing was also included in the advanced class competitions list. On this day, the Purple Mountain Institute was incomparably lively. It was the day of the advanced class competition, and it was even grander than the new student competition. This was because every advanced class competition was related to the Falling Star sect's selection of disciples. Today, The students of the Purple Mountain Institute were especially excited because Xianxia would personally oversee the competition this time. Xianxia was a legend in the Purple Mountain County, the only martial saint. The students had only heard of his name, but had never seen him in person. However, when Xianxia appeared, the gazes of the majority of the students were filled with astonishment and disappointment. Xianxia was sitting in a wheelchair and was pushed by someone. He looked extraordinary, but his whole person didn't have the slightest bit of an expert's aura. He was just like an ordinary person. On the other hand, the youth who was pushing Xianxia's wheelchair shocked the majority of the students. This was only an 18 or 19-year-old youth. He looked about the same as the advanced class students, but his aura was incomparably powerful, surpassing any ninth-stage martial path teacher in the institute. Perhaps only the 3 vice principals' aura could compare. Who is this person? Xianxia actually has such a powerful junior, and he's a ninth-stage martial master? Some students exclaimed in a low voice. The majority of the students didn't recognize Wang Feng. However, some students from the county city knew and whispered, "This is the county city's Wang clan's genius junior, Wang Feng, the nephew of Vice Principal Wang." He was accepted by Xianxia as a direct disciple at a young age, and later became his adopted son. I heard that he is Martial Saint Tianming, destined to become a martial saint in the future. When this news spread, whether it was the advanced class students or the new students, there was a burst of cold gasps. Martial Saint Tianming's peerless genius? Xianxia's direct disciple, and even his adopted son. Compared to Wang Feng, the Purple Mountain Academy's gifted class students, ordinary class students, old students, and new students all paled in comparison. Yi Xing was also shocked. However, he wasn't shocked by Wang Feng, but rather by Xianxia. It was as Chu Jingnan had said, that Xianxia was a cripple. If his legs weren't crippled, why would he be in a wheelchair and be pushed around by others? If he was particular about style, he should be carried around by others. There was no style in sitting in a wheelchair and being pushed around by others. Therefore, it could only be Xianxia's legs that had a problem. This made Yi Xing feel strange. He had always thought that when he left the Purple Mountain Academy and encountered danger on the way to the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, it was Xianxia who saved him. However, now it seemed that a cripple who even needed to be pushed around by others, how could he save someone in the wild? If it wasn't Xianxia, then who was the one who shot the arrow? Students, in this assessment, only the top 10 will be rewarded, and only the top 10 will have the opportunity to participate in the Falling Star Sects disciple selection. Work hard and strive to get a good ranking. Although this assessment only rewards the top 10, the rewards will be doubled. After Xianxia spoke in front of all the students, he was pushed by Wang Feng to the VIP building. When the advanced class students heard this, some were happy, while some were sad. In the past, the rewards were the same as the new students' assessment. The top 40 would be rewarded, but this time, only the top 10 would be rewarded. Naturally, a large number of students would lose the opportunity to obtain the rewards. As for the 8th stage martial path students who had hopes of getting into the top 10, they were all very excited. The rewards for the top 10 were very generous, and if it was doubled, it would be even more exciting. The assessment soon began. The process was similar to the new students' assessment, but there was a slight difference. After entering the 2nd stage, there would be elimination matches until the first place was decided. Yi Xing, as a new student, joined the assessment list. Naturally, he was ranked last and was assigned to the 20th group. When the assessment began, the 20th group's matches were without a doubt the most spectators. A new student participating in the advanced class assessment was something that had never happened before in the Purple Mountain Academy. All the new students felt incomparable glory. Yi Xing's group naturally attracted the most attention of the new students. The standard of the Purple Mountain Academy students was not high. The advanced genius class had a total of 13 8th-stage martial artists, while the ordinary class had none. Most of the geniuses were 7th-stage martial artists, while the ordinary class had 6th-stage martial artists. In the 20th group, The highest cultivation was a peak 7th stage martial artist, 3 7th stage martial artists, and 15 6th stage martial artists. Yi Xing's cultivation was in the middle of the 7th stage, and his martial arts attainments far exceeded theirs. Naturally, he swept through the 20 group. Even the peak 7th stage martial artist could not stop Yi Xing's sweeping path and was defeated in one move. Yi Xing easily took the first place in the 20th group and advanced to the second stage of the elimination matches. There was no doubt that Yi Xing's performance was extremely eye-catching, but he could not be considered the leader. Wei Qingxian also swept all the way in Group 17, and no one was her match. Wei Qingxian was originally a new student, but was specially recruited into the advanced genius class. The new students also had a strong sense of identity with her. Moreover, a young girl was always more attractive than a man. Yi Xing's audience was mostly snatched away by Wei Qingxian. No wonder Wei Qingxian was specially recruited into the advanced genius class. Her cultivation speed is too fast, not one bit slower than Yi Xing. Her strength is also so strong. Of course, she is the only 9-star Destiny student in the academy. How can she not be a genius? The new students were all shocked. The competition didn't last long and ended in less than 4 hours. The top 40 students were determined. The 13 level 8 grandmasters naturally advanced. Other than them, there were also peak level 7 grandmasters and peak level 7 grandmasters. Including Yi Xing, there was no one whose cultivation was lower than middle level 7 grandmasters. After the elimination matches, the academy had to redivide the square and rest for a period of time. Just as the elimination matches were about to begin, 3 giant blue wind eagles with wingspan of more than 10 zhang flew towards the Purple Mountain Academy, directly entering the academy's airspace. Not being a member of the academy, directly entering from the sky was an extremely disrespectful act towards the Purple Mountain Academy. On the back of each blue wind eagle, there was a martial artist, an old man in his 60s, and 2 middle-aged men in their 30s or 40s. Their auras were monstrous, as deep as the sea. Seeing that there were many people in the academy square, the 3 of them controlled the blue wind eagles and directly swooped down. At the same time, the 3 of them released their cultivation, and a terrifying aura suppressed in all directions. Many students could not help but tremble under the pressure of the 3's aura. It was the aura of a martial saint. In the Purple Mountain Academy, from the teachers to the students, no one was not shocked. It was rare to see a martial saint, but these 3 were all martial saints. Who dares to intrude into my Purple Mountain Academy? Xianxia is here, don't be presumptuous. Wang Haiqing's voice came from the highest floor of the VIP building. As the first vice principal of the academy, he naturally stood out. The 3 martial saints looked at each other. The old man nodded slightly and jumped down from the blue wind eagle. The 3 of them cupped their fists towards the VIP building to show their respect. Although they were all martial saints, Xianxia was the lord of the Fallen Star country, which was also the lord of the Fallen Star sect. Naturally, his status was higher than theirs. Chapter 117. The 3 of them appeared to be well-mannered, but in reality, their expressions were not respectful at all. Even juniors like Chu Jingnan had heard that Xianxia was a cripple. How could they not know that these 3 were martial saints? Xianxia had been in Zishan County for more than 10 years and had always been depressed. He rarely took care of matters and rarely showed himself. The martial saints of the Fallen Star Kingdom all knew that he was a cripple, so how could they have the slightest respect for him? After the superficial courtesy, the old man in his 60s said loudly, "Xianxia, I am the vice principal of the Ziyang Academy, Mo Baixing. Your Zishan Academy student, Yi Xing, killed my student, Zhen Xiang Temple. We are here to capture Yi Xing Xianxia. For the sake of the harmony between the 2 academies, please hand over that traitor Yi Xing." When Yi Xing saw the 3 of them, he already had some guesses in his heart. It was as he had expected. The martial saints of the Ziyang Academy actually came to the Zishan Academy to capture him, and even sent out the vice principal. It could be seen that Zhen Xianglin's status in the Ziyang Academy was not ordinary. When Mo Baixing said this, Everyone in the Zishan Academy was shocked, and their expressions were different. The students who had never heard of the Ziyang Academy were fine, but those who had heard of the Ziyang Academy were even more shocked. The Ziyang Academy was one of the 3 strongest academies in the Fallen Star Kingdom. Even their teachers were martial saints. Yi Xing dared to kill a student of the Ziyang Academy. This was simply eating a bear's heart and leopard's guts. The deacons and teachers of the academy naturally knew of the Ziyang Academy, and they were all incomparably shocked. As for the 3 vice principals, Wu Yunshan and Li Xiaoran were shocked, and at the same time, they frowned and felt a surge of anger in their hearts. Yi Xing had caused such a disaster. Not only would he suffer, but the Zishan Academy would also lose face. On the other hand, Wang Haiqing sneered in his heart. He wanted Yi Xing to die, but he did not dare to do so because of Zishan Ho's warning. Now that Yi Xing had caused such a disaster, Yi Xing was seeking his own death. The only one whose expression remained the same was Zishan Ho, as if this was a trivial matter that wasn't worth mentioning. Zishan Ho said, "Today is the day of our Zishan Academy's advanced class entrance examination. If there's anything, we can talk about it after the examination. The 3 of you are guests from afar, so please take a rest on the side." Zishan Ho's reply allowed Yi Xing to let out a sigh of relief. If the academy didn't care about him, no matter how strong he was, it would be difficult for him to escape from the palms of the 3 martial saints. Mo Baixing and the other 2 martial saints looked unhappy. They had come to the Purple Mountain Academy to capture people. What did the exam have to do with them? However, Zishan Ho was still a marquis conferred by the emperor. Even if the 3 of them did not take him seriously, they were not willing to offend him. After all, their status was lower than Zishan Ho's. Alright, then we'll wait until after the test to capture that traitor. As Mo Baisheng spoke, he leaped onto the Blue-Wind Eagle's back and waved his hand. The other 2 martial saints also leaped onto the Blue-Wind Eagle's back. The 3 huge Blue-Wind Eagles fluttered their wings and glided, standing in a row on the side of the square as spectators. Zishan Ho did not invite them to sit upstairs, so the 3 of them naturally waited on the side. The elimination round began quickly. In the first round, 20 out of 40 would advance. Yi Xing, as the first in the 20th group, was the last to fight. His opponent was a peak 7th layer martial grandmaster. The Purple Mountain Academy is really weak. They don't even have a 9th layer martial grandmaster. Even if they have 8th layer martial grandmasters, there are only 13 of them. Our Ziyang Academy can just send out a genius class of less than 10 students to defeat them. The 2 martial saints beside Mo Baixing said after watching a few matches. The 2 of them were teachers of the Ziyang Academy. In the Ziyang Academy, although they were martial saints, they were not considered the highest level of the academy. Coming to the Purple Mountain Academy, they felt incomparably superior. In the Purple Mountain Academy, even the vice principal was not a martial saint. As martial saints, they naturally had the qualifications to be superior. This girl is not bad. Her cultivation is very solid, and her martial arts attainments are also far superior to those of the same realm. It seems that the Purple Mountain Academy still has some talents. When Wei Qingxian went on stage and defeated her peak 7th layer martial grandmaster in one move, the eyes of a martial saint teacher from the Ziyang Academy lit up. Another martial saint teacher said, "It's a pity. What can a good seedling do in the Purple Mountain Academy? She's already in the advanced class, but her cultivation is only at the 7th layer of the martial path. What a waste of talent." Although Wei Qingxian was only 14 years old, she had developed well. Her figure did not look worse than an 18 or 19-year-old girl. In addition, her face was covered with a thin veil, so the 2 martial saints could not see her appearance. Naturally, they did not know that she was only 14 years old. Even the Ziyang Academy did not have a 14-year-old 7th layer martial grandmaster. In the 4th round, the first place of the group would fight against the second place of the other groups. Those who could take the first place of the group were naturally strong. They did not need much time to defeat their opponents. Every battle went quickly, and soon it was the last round of the round. The 20th round, Yi Xing against Yang Gu. The 3 martial saints from the Ziyang Academy were all excited when they heard this. Their gazes suddenly became much sharper. When Yi Xing went on stage, he immediately felt 3 blade-like gazes locking onto him. Yang Gu's cultivation was at the peak of the 7th layer. Xianxia was defeated by Yi Xing because of this cultivation. At that time, Yi Xing was only a 6th layer martial grandmaster, but now, Yi Xing was a martial Dao grandmaster. I admit defeat. Yang Gu did not even fight and directly admitted defeat. He could not even defeat Xianxia, who was at the peak of the 7th layer. Now that Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through, his strength was obviously much stronger than 2 months ago. Yang Gu knew that he was far from being a match for Yi Xing. Xiang Temple died under Yi Xing's arrow. Wu Baixing and the other 2 martial saints did not know about Yi Xing's strength. They wanted to see Yi Xing's strength, but they did not expect that Yi Xing's opponent would directly admit defeat. They did not see anything. Just like this, Yi Xing easily entered the top 20. The second round of the elimination round began. In this round, 10 out of 20 would advance, but there were 13 8th-layer martial grandmasters. There would be 1 8th-layer martial grandmaster in each round, and 3 of them would be martial grandmasters. The first round, Ren Xiuwu against Shi Leji. The second round, Bu Haoling against Yu Gaoxian. The third round, Su Maodian against Wei Qingxian. The fourth round, Li Pengfei against Wu Yingkai. The fifth round, Xiong Qixing against Yi Xing. When Yi Xing heard the name list for the 5th round, the corner of his mouth curled up and his eyes lit up. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. He would have to fight against Xiong Qixing again. Although Xiong Qixing was seriously injured 2 months ago, he was completely healed in half a month with the help of Vice Principal Wang. Moreover, this injury was a blessing in disguise. He broke through the barrier to the 8th layer of the martial path. In half a month, he broke through to the 8th layer of the martial path and became an 8th layer martial grandmaster. Now, he had been an 8th layer martial grandmaster for a month. Yi Xing, your martial arts attainments have already reached such a high level. I don't believe you can improve any further. As long as your martial arts attainments don't improve, even if you become a 7th layer martial grandmaster, you may not be my match. Xiong Qixing thought to himself. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. This time, in front of everyone, I will repay you 10 times, no, 100 times what you gave me in the past. Neither of them paid attention to the name list for the next few rounds. By the time they reacted, the first round had already begun. Ren Xiuwu, a peak 8th layer martial grandmaster, defeated Shi Leji, a beginner 8th layer martial grandmaster, in 1 move and advanced to the top 10. In the second round, Bu Haoling also defeated his opponent in 1 move. He was a mid-8th layer martial grandmaster, while his opponent, Yu Gaoxian, was only a 7th layer martial grandmaster. In the third round, Su Maodian, a beginner 8th layer martial grandmaster, fought against Wei Qingxian, a peak 7th layer martial grandmaster. Although most of the students were on Wei Qingxuan's side and wanted Wei Qingxian to win, they knew in their hearts that a 7th layer martial grandmaster against an 8th layer martial grandmaster was too difficult. There was basically no hope of victory. However, the result was beyond everyone's expectations. 1 move. Wei Qingxian defeated Su Maodian, a beginner 8th layer martial grandmaster, in 1 move and won. Although this result made everyone happy, it also shocked all the students. Wei Qingxuan's strength was too strong. Other than Yi Xing, she was the only one in the competition who could defeat an opponent of a higher level. In the 4th round, Wu Yingkai, a 7th layer martial grandmaster, lost to Li Pengfei, an 8th layer martial grandmaster. This was within everyone's expectations. The 5th round was another exciting battle. When Yi Xing and Xiong Qixing entered the arena, all the students' spirits were lifted. 2 months ago, Yi Xing had already defeated Xiong Qixing, and Xiong Qixing was severely injured in front of everyone's eyes. Now, Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through to the martial Dao master level, and Xiong Qixing's cultivation had also advanced to the martial Dao grandmaster level. If the 2 of them fought again, would there be any changes in the result? Not only were the students' spirits lifted, but the academy's teachers were also in high spirits, revealing expressions of interest. On the highest floor of the VIP building, Wang Haiqing narrowed his eyes. Although in Wang Haiqing's opinion, Yi Xing would definitely be taken away by the vice principal of Ziyang Academy after the assessment, it couldn't be better if Xiong Qixing could teach him a lesson so that Xiong Qixing could wash away the humiliation from 2 months ago. At the edge of the square, the eyes of the 3 martial sages from Ziyang Academy, who were sitting on the back of the green-winged eagle, also lit up. In the last round, they didn't see Yi Xing fight. This round, they should be able to see it. After Yi Xing and Xiong Qixing entered the arena, they didn't say a word and immediately started fighting. Xiong Qixing took the lead and attacked first. He unsheathed his treasured saber, and the saber radiance, which was like moonlight, instantly slashed towards Yi Xing. Yi Xing faced the saber radiance and retreated instead of advancing. He clenched his hand into a fist and punched out. In an instant, Yi Xing's temperament changed. He turned into the king of beasts, a fierce tiger that came down from the mountains. When this fist was punched out, the sound of the fist whistled through the sky, as if a fierce tiger was roaring. Middle-grade martial skill, Roaring Tiger Fist. 2 months ago, Yi Xing had comprehended the Roaring Tiger Fist to the perfection stage, but he was interrupted by Xiong Qixing in the midst of his enlightenment. In the end, he only comprehended the low-grade martial skill completely, and was still a little lacking in the mid-grade martial skills perfection stage. Now, 2 months had passed. Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through, and his mastery of martial arts had improved a lot. This Roaring Tiger Fist had truly reached the perfection stage. Xiong Qixing only felt that Yi Xing had turned into an incomparably huge fierce tiger, rushing towards him. He was greatly shocked. Bang! The treasured saber flew backwards, and Yi Xing's fist landed on Xiong Qixing's chest. Chapter 118. Xiong Qixing was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch like a cannonball. His chest caved in with a fist mark. He spat out blood and was severely injured. One punch. Just one punch. Xiong Qixing was defeated by Yi Xing, and it was a terrible defeat. This result was out of everyone's expectations. They were expecting Xiong Qixing to reach the 8th level of the Grandmaster realm and have a fierce battle with Yi Xing. But in the end, Xiong Qixing was defeated with one punch. Xiong Qixing was blown dozens of zhangs away by Yi Xing's punch and fell on the ground far away. He struggled for a while but couldn't crawl back up. A few of his ribs had been broken, which was exactly where Yi Xing had injured him 2 months ago. Now, it was the second time he had been injured, which was extremely serious. On the highest floor of the VIP building, Wang Haiqing's eyes instantly revealed an extremely terrifying gaze. He had always been a protective person. Seeing his own son being beaten so miserably, if not for Zishanho's presence, he would probably have already flipped out in anger. Mo Baixing and the other 3 martial saints from the Ziyang school were also surprised. They did not expect Yi Xing to be so powerful. They had only heard that Yi Xing was good at archery. Dean Wu, Yi Xing is obviously a genius in the Zishan school. What if they don't hand him over? The martial saint teacher on the left asked Mo Baixing. Mo Baixing squinted and replied, "Let's try peaceful means before resorting to force. He wants us to wait, so we will wait. When the test is over, we don't care if he is a genius or not. We just want him. If he refuses again, we will have to resort to force. Let's see how a crippled noble plane cultivator can resist the 3 of us." Yi Xing defeated Xiong Qixing with one punch. Although it caused a commotion, the test continued and the winners of the next 5 rounds were decided. Li Yangping won the 6th match, Xikongya won the 7th match, Chou Tianda won the 8th match, Cui Jingtong won the 9th match, and Yan Feilwan won the 10th match. The winners were all level 8 grandmasters. Among them, Chou Tianda's cultivation was at the middle level 8, and he defeated an opponent at the early level 8. Including Ren Xiuwu, Bu Haoling, Wei Qingxian, Li Pengfei, and Yi Xing, who had won the previous 5 matches, they were in the top 10. In the 3rd round of the knockout stage, 5 out of 10 would advance. In this round, the winners of the first 5 matches would face off against the winners of the last 5 matches. The first match was between Ren Xiuwu and Li Yangping. The second match was between Bu Haoling and Xikongya. The third match was between Wei Qingxian and Chou Tianda. The fourth match was between Li Pengfei and Cui Jingtong. The fifth match was between Yi Xing and Yan Filon. In this round, the most eye-catching match was the third match between Wei Qingxian and Chou Tianda. In the previous round, Wei Qingxian defeated Su Maodian, who was at the early level 8, with one move. In this round, her opponent was Chou Tianda, who was at the middle level 8. As for the other 4 matches, there was almost no suspense. Ren Xiuwu's Cultivation was at the peak of level 8, Bu Haoling and Li Pengfei were at the middle level 8, and Yi Xing defeated Xiong Qixing, who was at the early level 8, with one punch. Their opponents were all at the early level 8, so there was no suspense. The first and second matches ended quickly, without any surprises. Ren Xiuwu defeated his opponent with one move again, and Bu Haoling won very easily. In the third match, Wei Qingxian and Chou Tianda walked into the center of the arena. Everyone's spirits were lifted. This match was the most exciting match of this round. Wei Qingxuan's performance in the last round was too amazing. Everyone wanted to know if Chou Tianda, who was at the middle level 8, could stop Wei Qingxian. "Senior brother Chou, please." Wei Qingxian cupped her hands to Chou Tianda and said in a pleasant voice. Chou Tianda was tall, more than 1.9 meters, and muscular like an iron tower. He said in a muffled voice, "Junior sister Wei, I admire your combat strength, but it's not that easy to defeat me. In this assessment, you can only stop at the top 10. Wei Qingxian laughed like a silver bell and said, "Top 10? But I still want to be the first." "Want to be the first?" All the students were shocked. Everyone thought that Ren Xiuwu, who was at the peak of level 8, would be the first in the assessment. Wei Qingxuan's strength was very strong, but basically no one thought that she could be compared with Ren Xiuwu. In the eyes of the students, Chou Tianda was Wei Qingxuan's biggest enemy, and Wei Qingxian might not be able to pass this stage. However, there was one person who was very confident in Wei Qingxian, and that was Yi Xing. Yi Xing's martial arts attainments were superb, and he could feel that Wei Qingxuan's martial arts attainments were also very profound. It was very likely that she was not inferior to him. Although he was curious how Wei Qingxian could have such high attainments in martial arts, he had a strong feeling that it was not bad. Half of my genius is due to the super brain. Maybe she is the real peerless genius in martial arts. Yi Xing said to himself. Chou Tianda looked unhappy. Wei Qingxian said that she wanted to be the first. Didn't that mean that only Ren Xiuwu was her opponent? Wasn't that looking down on Chou Tianda? "If you want to be the first, you have to get through me first," Chou Tianda shouted, and his tall body rushed toward Wei Qingxian. He was born with great strength, and his body was strong. Practicing the body refining technique was twice the result with half the effort. Although his martial arts attainments were average, he had practiced the Iron Ox skill to the realm beyond the profound level. The Iron Ox technique was an upper-grade body refining technique. There were not many 8th-level grandmasters who had cultivated the upper-grade body refining technique to the Deshang level. However, Chou Tianda's Iron Ox technique had surpassed the Deshang level, and his physical strength was extremely strong. Chou Tianda didn't need to have a high level of martial arts attainment. He could crush many level 8 grandmasters with his powerful body alone. Chou Tianda was like an iron ox trampling on the ground. He rushed to Wei Qingxian, swayed his body, and punched out instantly. Middle-class martial arts technique, Reckless Ox Fist. Chou Tianda's martial arts attainments were not high. Although he had learned the upper-class martial arts technique, he had just stepped into the realm of small success. It was better to use a full-fledged middle-class martial arts technique. Moreover, the combination of Reckless Ox Fist and Iron Ox skill would be more powerful. When Chou Tianda used it, even the upper-class martial arts technique at the profound level would not be as powerful. However, in the face of Chou Tianda's rampage, Wei Qingxian did not even take half a step back. Her clothes moved without wind, as if there was an invisible force coming from her body. It shook in all directions, and in an instant, there was a feeling of indomitable spirit. Lower-class body refining technique, Mountain Skill. Mountain Skill focused on momentum, and Wei Qingxuan's momentum had reached the realm of perfection. It was truly out of God. Chou Tianda's eyes changed. At that moment, Wei Qingxuan's figure was not in his eyes, but an incomparably huge mountain. This shocked Chou Tianda, and his momentum suddenly decreased. No matter how strong the iron ox was, could it collide with a real mountain? At that moment, Chou Tianda was affected by the momentum of Wei Qingxuan's mountain skill. Ha! At the same time, Wei Qingxian shouted and punched Chou Tianda's fist. Roar of the Tiger. Middle-class martial arts technique, Roar of the Tiger Fist. In Chou Tianda's eyes, a huge tiger suddenly jumped down from the huge mountain and pounced on him. This made Chou Tianda's shock turn into horror. His heart suddenly jumped, and his momentum collapsed again. Without the momentum of Reckless Ox Fist, the power of Reckless Ox Fist was naturally reduced. Bang! With a loud explosion, Chou Tianda felt pain in his arm and immediately woke up from the shock of Wei Qingxuan's momentum. But it was too late. A terrifying force passed from the point of contact between the two fists, and the clothes on Chou Tianda's arm were hit by the force and shattered inch by inch. Whoosh! Chou Tianda instantly flew backward, and was blown away by Wei Qingxuan's punch. His qi and blood were in turmoil, and a trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. Everyone in the Zishan Academy, whether it was the elders or the students, was shocked at this moment. Even the 3 martial arts saints from the Ziyang Academy were shocked by Wei Qingxuan's strength. Even Yi Xing, who had long expected Wei Qingxian to easily defeat Chou Tianda, showed a trace of surprise. Wei Qingxian defeated the enemy with 1 punch and won cleanly. Even he could not do better. Chou Tianda flew back more than 10 meters, and after landing, he took a few more steps back before he could stabilize his body. His eyes were full of horror. Senior Sister Wei. Senior Sister Wei's strength is too strong for Chou Tianda. I admit defeat. Chou Tianda was an open-minded person. Being defeated by Wei Qingxian with 1 punch could be said to be a big loss of face, but he was not angry. Instead, he was convinced by Wei Qingxuan's strength, and was full of respect for Wei Qingxian. He even changed the way he addressed her as Senior Sister. Senior Brother Chou, thank you for letting me win. Wei Qingxian nodded. She was not arrogant. Senior Sister Wei. At this time, no one knew who was hot-headed and shouted, Senior Sister Wei. Senior Sister Wei. Senior Sister Wei is the champion. Wei Qingxian was not only very popular among the new students, but also many of the older students, like Chou Tianda, were convinced by her. Someone shouted the first, and soon a large number of students followed suit. Their voices were full of passion, and someone directly shouted that she was the champion, which made Ren Xiuwu, who was at the peak of level 8, gloomy. Wei Qingxian was stunned. She could be said to be the youngest in the whole Zishan Academy, only 14.5 years old. She was a little confused to be called Senior Sister Wei by so many students all of a sudden. She kindly smiled at the students who were shouting around her, and then stepped back. The veil covered her smile, but the students felt the smile in her eyes, and some of them shouted even more excitedly. In terms of popularity, Wei Qingxian was worthy of the title of number 1 in the Zishan Academy. This Wei Qingxian is indeed very unusual. Vice Principal Mo, when we take Yi Xing away later, should we take her with us? It's too wasteful for her to stay in this rubbish academy. We can recruit her into the Ziyang Academy and focus on training her. In the future, when she is sent to the Falling Stars sect, she may be another martial saint. In that case, the Ziyang Academy will make a contribution to the Falling Stars sect. The martial saint teacher on the left side of Mo Baixing was very optimistic about Wei Qingxian and transmitted his voice to Mo Baixing. Mo Baixing nodded. Yes, she is indeed good. If the Ziyang Academy wants to take her as a student, I think the Zishan Academy will not dare to stop us. When the time comes, we can just give the Zishan Academy some compensation. When the passionate shouting quieted down, the 4th battle was over. Li Pengfei, who was at the middle of level 8, won. The 5th battle was Yi Xing's turn again, and his opponent was Yen Failwan. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.